First topic. If they prove to be the safer option in the future, should self-driving cars be required, just like seatbelts? 45 minutes left on the clock. Jump in.
Of course
Yes,
they
they should be required. Even though right now accident rates are kind of higher when it comes to self-driving cars, in the future, when that is like corrected for, and we have everything worked out, we can all get drunk and like have a safe way to get home without having to worry about it. And also, it'll just lower the rate of accidents. Even though there are like a lot of accidents right now with self-driving cars, they are way more or less severe than what happens with human drivers. Human drivers have a tendency to have a lead foot and like just gun it and kill a lot of people. Whereas self-driving cars are usually the accidents happen due to minor malfunctions and like things like that. So the accidents are like a lot less harmful. A lot more minor things happening rather than like total like highway collisions, like massive car pileups and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
do
would
agree
say-
with that. Just real quick, I do agree with what Chris is saying here. That we make updates and what's required for cars, technology-wise, all the time. We've done this before. We've changed our laws before to require things. Now, I do think there should still be a space for self-driving cars, even in the future. I do think there should be areas where those are allowed, but on main thoroughfares, main highways, high traffic areas, once we correct the problems of self-driving cars, and once they become a demonstrably safer option, when we have data for that, I do think that on main thoroughfares, interstates, etc., those should be a requirement. I think there's a lot of a good and utility that can be brought forth from that, and I think that we should allow space for self-driving cars. There should be areas where you could still use them, but on the whole, I think self-driving car requirement is a good thing.
I think that
you got to be a little more specific because you keep saying.
Tags, go ahead. Tags, and then
I honestly, I believe that we should still implement it until the fact that all non-self-driving cars are no longer on the road, because unfortunately, people don't even use them now. And when you introduce something completely new to people, they get used to I mean, they're making headlamps with cameras on for people who walk around with their phones and don't pay attention. That same person in a self-driving car, they might get into another car and never wear a seatbelt. And I believe that, not giving too much of an option to confuse people of should I or should I not, you should still have it. Now, if it's like, one of those tram kind of like, I guess it kind of depends on what kind of setup the self-driving cars are. Like Minority Report, are we talking about just what we have now? Then I still think it should be an option because, well, it is safer, but I think it should be there for the fact that do not allow people to kind of like lose their mind. People get new technology, they just, I don't know, they seem to mess it up.
So on that technology point, because I want to no, I don't think I'll be the one. I don't think this should be required up until we know that it's not only a safer method, it's the safest method. It would I want it to be so it would be unsafe if we still had people out there driving manual cars. But with that, self-driving technology, I don't want people who don't understand how to work their iPhones to get behind the wheel of one of these things and somehow manage to fuck it up, because there are people like that. So I need this to be 100% locked down before I sign off on something like that. And right now, seeing how society handles technology, I don't know if I would trust us with that type of requirement.
Man,
so I think I can agree with what. Okay, so I think I can agree with basically everything that's been said so far. It feels like it's a bit of a jump in the shark question. We're not really at the technology right now to discuss, hey, would this be a perfect implementation if it caused way less deaths? There's around 30,000 traffic fatalities every year. If we could guarantee that self-driving cars would make that 1,000, then yeah, it's an easy guess, and it should be an easy guess for anybody who's considering it. But we haven't even presently mandated only electric cars, even though that's beneficial to society. It feels like this is a question that will come through time. We'll make self-driving cars much more common, and then give it a decade or so, and more people will just have them. We won't need to mandate it. People will just slowly buy them because it's super cool to be able to get in the back of your car, drink a bunch of beer, and in 2 days you're in California, even though you started in New York. The utility of a self-driving car will itself be the selling point. I don't think we need to specifically lay out like a mandate from the government. Subsidies so that the research gets done, sure, but whether or not it needs to be law, I don't know.
Amanda, then Killer, and then Chris.
Yeah, I just think that if we're going to mandate anything, we better hope that the government is paying for it. I know a lot of people that can't afford these types of cars. So, I mean, yeah, if they're giving away free cars, maybe, but until then, no.
Killer?
Actually, these.
Killer.
Oh,
Yeah, I actually agree a lot with Amanda. I find it funny that people want the inclusion of this technology immediately increases the price of the car. Not only that, but we don't even have rights to repair yet. Farmers are having a huge issue right now. I was laughing on a Vice video about this because they're now pirating software and stuff from the ex-Iron Bloc countries, like the Southern European ones. Because simply, if you buy a John Deere tractor, you have to now get your tractor towed straight to John Deere if anything defects, and no one's allowed to replace it, fix it, or anything, and they keep everything proprietary. So you're going to monopolize repairs of your car, software and stuff like that, and if you decide to go to a third-party shop, install a third-party software or anything else like that, your car is shut down. Not only that, but then you're seeing a huge price increase in vehicles.
So I would say this is where the question gets more interesting, and you'd want some government regulation. Like, that's reasonable to say that we need some level of regulation relative to these vehicles so that Tesla or any other car company can't explicitly shut down your car because you got new tires, or they can't shut down your car because you replaced the spark plugs on your own. There's definitely things that we'll need to do to regulate this industry, but to mandate that we only have driverless cars without like an actual way to break that down seems like a question that's like 20 years from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. First of all, technology, as things progress, technology gets cheaper. Right now, like a self-driving car from Tesla they have them in the range for like even like middle and let's say like middle class individuals can pretty much afford like the lowest model Tesla with self-driving features. And as years go on, it's going to get cheaper and cheaper. Not only that, we're going to have manufacturers who will cater to the fact that you don't want an entire like vehicle that's proprietary, where like you can only get it from the manufacturer. There's going to be things like it's going to be like an Android for this situation, right? Manufacturers who want to cater to that, those people who want to like modify and like change things up for their vehicles. That's just if we believe in markets at all, I guess like we think that like there will be some sort of manufacturers who come in and try to like alleviate that. And also there will be to go off a Wick's point about there needing to be some private well, at least some space for people who want to drive themselves. I agree with that. There are private tracks all over the place. There are like individuals who have like places for professional drivers and enthusiasts to just come and play around with their cars and drive on the track at any speed limit. I don't think those are going to go away. And as long as those exist, like people can go and have fun driving. So, yeah.
So, if not required, would it be okay, just like how currently, if you are a young male, right, like in your like teenage, like early 20s, like you have higher car insurance rates, right, because you're more of a risk. Like, should anyone who insists on driving themselves get higher rates because you're a human and you just cannot be trusted as much as machine? Go ahead.
I would say,
agree with that real quick.
If we demonstrate that these cars are safer than people, right? Like, if we can demonstrate 100% that, like, you being in a self-driving car with, like, your seatbelt and everything is safer than you actually driving a car, then 100% I would be in favor for, like, some type of, them trying to push people towards getting, a self-driving car. But like we would have to demonstrate that first for me personally.
Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of two different, just real quick, they're kind of two different topics being talked about right now. And one is as technology exists today, I don't think anyone here would say that we should move to this. However, this seems to be where we're going. And if the trend continues, if the data doesn't bear this out and this doesn't seem like a technology that we can demonstrate is safer, I will change my mind on this topic. I will go with the data on where the data leads. But as a conceptual argument and as a conceptual framework, and can we say that it should be incentivized to move to self-driving cars, yes. Now, Amanda brings up a really good point. We do need to keep in mind, and Killer Sieg as well brought up this point, I believe, that we do need to keep in mind how this will affect different groups in our society, and we need to take that into account when we implement things like this. But that isn't an argument against implementing it at all. It's an argument against implementing it poorly. And yes, if we implement any policy poorly or any law poorly, any restriction poorly, it's going to be bad. But we can't do this in ways that will lessen the harm to groups who are in poverty and groups who don't have the means. And there are definitely ways to do it which will make society safer, and I think is much better and more desirable.
Let's go to
So
tags.
I think
Let's go to tags, Killer, then Amanda.
And I'm kind of a feed off of that is that, you know, you look at the Minority Report. I mean, he literally pulled up to him and, you know, he didn't have to really touch anything. You know, if we're talking about that technology, obviously, I mean, it's going to be like a little pod on a track, you know, but with the technology now, I mean, and now we're also talking about you're implementing, you know, Ford's self-driving with Tesla's self-driving and all these different companies that we can't, you know, you may not be able to, you know, Ford's the best, but not Toyota or whatever, you know, when you get different types of companies out there and this and that. I think that if it's fully self-driving, not this where you could switch over, because I know there was that one thing about the Tesla, they couldn't find out if he was driving or if it was self-driving. I think that once the human control is actually there at some point, if any, then you should have a seatbelt. But at the same time, with that whole insurance thing, yeah, I think that, you know, if it is self-driving, you should be able to rely on that technology. And if you don't want to, you know, you can wear a seatbelt that maybe, you know, if something does happen, can help prove that it isn't that safe. Or, you know, you get, you know, but also what you're saying about having people's younger people who wants to actually just drive, you know, because they can't really afford a self-driving car. You know, they get, you know, their hand-me-downs from the 80s. You know, if they, yeah, they should. I don't think they should pay more because the fact that, you know, it does hurt the environment more in the sense of having to produce so much stuff that, you know, running them into the ground would be better, but also at the same time that I want to know how close they are to the other self-driving car. Now, if they're on their own road with their own human driving roads with only them, then it should stay probably where it is now. I don't think we should have, you know, hurt them because they can't afford a self-driving car because I mean that's probably going to be expensive, I can assume. So
let's go to Killer, then Amanda, and I'll try to expand this question.
All right. My other two main contentions with this is really, first off, the more complex you get the technology, the harder it is to maintain, and yet it's just me reiterating that you're going to make it harder for a lot of people in society. And I know what Chris Cosmo said, which is technology is getting cheaper. But the question is, do you think the average person in America, especially below a certain line, like workers, can just afford a car, like a brand new one or anything crazy like that? Or they have to go into debt and stuff like that, and we're going to now suddenly make that more expensive? The other thing that I see with this is we run into the trolley problem, which is now we're going to have technologies that have morals inside them that we might not exactly agree with, that are making decisions with our own lives and other people's lives on our own behalves. And sometimes I like to still keep my own morals and my own decisions to myself, and not necessarily what Microsoft's engineers or Tesla's engineers think is the best moral way to any path.
Can you explain that? Could you expand on like what is a moral decision that with the cars would be making?
A very common one is if a car is gonna crash, and it can choose two different paths. Is it better for it to kill the person inside, or is it better for it to kill, let's say, the jaywalker that it was going to crash into?
That's not how it works.
Okay.
Well, the answer is to hope that your car has enough airbags to save you and it crashes and doesn't hit the jaywalker who has no protection. That's the moral, like normal human choice too. You should swerve and not hit the pedestrian.
And not only that, the cars.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You can answer.
I was going to say, not only that, the cars a lot of times are made to stop, right? When you are in a position where you're about to hit something, a lot of features in cars are not to swerve off into some path to miss. It's to completely stop. And like, if every car is built with that, then the car behind you is going to stop. The car behind that one's going to stop, right? And you don't have to worry about some pileup happening because all of these cars are regulated to to do the same thing. And we're talking about like if the government is mandating this, then these manufacturers are going to have to program them by the government standards of how traffic should go. So
Well, those-
Let's go to
Yeah.
let's go to Amanda. So Amanda, then Cancel, then Pyro. Okay.
I guess if the government mandates these cars, I'm wondering who's responsible, liable, and stuff in situations. Is it the manufacturer? Like if we got in an accident, is it the government that's forcing us to drive these cars? And again, if it's mandated, why are we also having to get insurance and whatnot? I guess it all comes back to a liability thing.
So I actually was about to get to that too. I think relative to the insurance question, if we're all at driverless cars, we shouldn't be holding private insurance. The companies should. Technically speaking, if there's some fault that occurs, not through an action of my own, but because my Tesla or my Nissan, whatever, has an accident, why should I be privately insured against that fault? Why not the company? There's a lot of situations where if this happens, yes, I should take on private insurance if I decide to drive privately, and maybe that can be a higher rate. But overall, the insurance should be held by the company that produces these vehicles. If there's liability to be had, it's on them now.
It's like the Bose speakers, how they guarantee their product, where it's like you don't need to buy a warranty because we guarantee that it works.
Well, so okay, you guys are all assuming that like it'll like these will be 100% safe, but let's say they're not like 100% safe, right?
Well, I was
Let's
actually
say,
gonna.
hold on, let me just finish my words, please. So let's say they're not 100% safe. Let's say that if we have 33,000 deaths, that if we went fully self-driving, that it would be down to 10,000 deaths. So like there is a risk involved, right? Accidents can happen, computers can make a mistake, right? In terms of and all kinds of other things can happen, like beyond the control of the car itself, right? So in that case, should it still be the case that you are required, right? Like saying that, well, it's still safer to an extent, but you are required to be using it. And if you don't, there's jail time because it's just like driving drunk. Go ahead, Pyro.
Yeah, like that was something I was gonna bring up because I wanted to go after Cancel the Communist. Because like he brought up the good point about like the moral situation, and then like I just started thinking about a lot of the environmental factors that like people have to take into account for, right? Like we're talking about if you want to bring up climate change into this, like we've seen recently in the last few years that like wildfires in certain parts of the country have been like just out of control. Are self-driving cars going to be able to save people if they become a requirement and like there's no function for a self-driving option or something like that? Are they going to be capable of saving people's lives when like sudden shit happens that there's not really a computation for in a computer, right? Like a burning tree falls in the middle of your path and then like you're trying to reverse and then there's another one. Like what do you do then? Like the car's not Optimus Prime, it can't like dislodge it for you, right? Like
so clearly Pyro beat me to the Transformers joke, but I actually can kind of agree here. Whenever I saw this topic, the first thing that popped into my head was the like true act of God. A meteor strikes the interstate in front of you while you're driving down the road.
Rock slides.
Yeah,
like
exactly. So like how does a car handle these sorts of situations? When the real problem is if it's as split a second that you as a human couldn't react to it, then like, there's no distinction to be made, right? If that avalanche or that rock slide or that flooding would have gotten you anyways, then it doesn't matter that it was the car. But that said, since the car would be the one that has some failure here and not the human operator, why would the human operator be the one holding the insurance and not the company that produced the vehicle?
Let's go to Wick and then Chris.
And I agree
And
with
tax.
I agree with communist in this entirely that if this change were to be implemented, that it would make no sense to have private insurance, that it would be a corporate insurance that should be held responsible. They should be the one footing the bill. And that's what, when we talk about these things, we usually assume that they're going to be changed in isolation. I don't think that's the case. I think whenever we make a change like this, we have to recognize that other societal changes have to come alongside this change, or it makes no sense. So when we talk about transitioning to self-driving cars, into this kind of technology. A lot of the concerns and questions being brought up are, in a lot of cases, engineering concerns. There are questions that should be asked and need to be asked, but again, in this hypothetical, assuming we could fix it, and as PrimeCayes said, if there's a demonstrable reduction in deaths and by a large margin, I think it would be irresponsible not to make this change. That's not to say that there aren't problems. There's not to say that there aren't things that we need to discuss, need to go through. The insurance claim is a good one. When we talk about self-driving cars versus regular person driving cars, I think there we could have lots of different solutions here. So a 2-track system, one set of roads that you can drive by yourself on, and another set of roads that you would have to be mandated using self-driving cars. When we talk about punishment, again, laws of the the laws of the land, rules of the road, as we say. Yeah, there should be rules regarding it. What those are will depend on the technology. It's all contextual.
In major cities, we already have that split too. You have HOV lanes, so you can just mandate it that your HOV lanes turn into self-driving lanes, right? If you have a self-driving vehicle, you're allowed to get on the HOV lane into the city. You'll likely get there faster. That's like a small incentive to push us in the right direction, same as it was for carpooling before it.
Okay, let's go to Chris and then Tags.
I wanted to tackle the safety thing. People have like this assumption that for some reason, like human beings are the ones who are capable of make the better decisions. Where like we've been proving this like all the time. Like when it comes to AI, the reason why people find it so scary is because not only is it able to make decisions hundreds of times faster, but it's able to make smarter and more like smarter decisions, right? Like make decisions that make more sense. And because of this, like you have like chess like grandmasters like getting like completely destroyed because of like these decision making algorithms, right? It's not that like these individual people are programming in individual things, right? They have to write in all the lines of code for what if a tree falls in front of you, right? It's not that way, right? What's happening is these like situations are introduced to these like to the system, right? Simulations are run, new things are found out in the simulation, right? So like they're running programs and algorithms, they're running situations that are like at hundreds of times faster than we could think about them, right? And it's coming up with newer and more like fantastical situations that we can ever dream of, and like it's running through those situations. So when we get to that point where like these cars are more prevalent, where they're all over the road, and we have built these systems to become more safer, like to be safer than the average human being, then at that point we won't need to have to worry about those situations. If a forest is on fire and you have to get to your car, that car is going to like know when to stop for you to get in, right? To know how to make sure everyone's safe, and not only that, but find optimal routes to safety. And if things happen spontaneously, it's able to think and respond quicker and smarter than any human being ever would. And we're proving that today with these other AI systems that we're working through.
So I want to even expand this question even more, but I'll wait till after Tags. Go ahead, Tags.
I was just gonna say that also kind of thinking about it. I mean, and I bring up the Minority Report because we all know like the tunnel and like
It was really
there's
fucking
no control,
cool.
right?
It was really fucking cool.
And if we're talking about that, it's like how do you implement? You implement that, say, let's say downtown, big cities, right? But now when you kind of talk about the falling tree and this and that, I believe that there still should be some manual control, and also like the insurance thing is, I don't think you should affect people because you also have to now consider what about that person in Arkansas that lives out in the mountain? Are they going to install an entire road for this one person that maybe 30 people go on, this and that, and now you have ice and you have this, you have a lot of other factors that may not factor into the most the major cities where like California, perfect weather, what can go wrong, so I still think that until technology reaches that point, we're still going to have some or going to need some kind of manual control, because I mean look at the fire marshals. I mean, you have to drive off road to get to an optimal point to put out a fire. So are we saying that, well, we should increase his insurance, or this and that? But also you also have to think about those people who think robots are going to murder them in their sleep and their car is going to wake up and smother them with the pillow. They're not going to want to drive this car. So we're going to have some pushback from that too. So I think that it should be up to the companies. If they have 100%, rate and this and that, like cool. But I don't think we should affect others who, like I said, maybe can't afford it or live out on a farm. That their vehicle is just self-driving is just not optimal for that because they need a big old truck. So.
Well, certainly in residential, rural areas, I think the laws can be different. We can recognize that different areas and different situations can have different applications of the law. So, and we already have this problem in rural areas with the lack of infrastructure, the insufficient buildup of transportation infrastructure. This is already a struggle, and we can recognize though that we can make laws and decisions that take that into account, but also enforce it where it is needed to be enforced.
Okay. So I want to expand this, and I'll go to you next, Pyro. I want to expand this. So, what area of life should we not have AI take over? Because you can see through, there could be many others. Is like everyone seems to have the trust in technology. Okay, if it considers to be quote unquote safe, right? Whatever those metrics are. But what part should we not have them? Like, for instance, EMS, right? If you could have like robot EMS, would you want that? Or police officers or whatever, right? Like there's all many areas of life. Where would you not want robots to be in?
So, also policing is one thing. I would not want robots to be in policing. Literally a couple of days ago on the All Black panel, we talked about how, like, even if with the best intentions, like, some biases still get into that code when, like, determining this shit when it comes to, like, facial recognition and stuff. I don't want to see this put in the hands of, like, the one system in America that we know don't give a fuck about anyone. Like, not just black people, not just minorities, anyone. I don't want to see that. I don't know what type of shit they're going to be programming, right? Like, we could be thinking, like, you're getting a Officer Joe bot, but in reality, they're programming it to be like the AT-AT from fucking Star Wars, just gun down anyone on the streets. I don't want that. Like, I don't trust police enough for them to get robots. No. I wasn't with it with the robot dogs. I'm not with it with Terminators.
I think I tend to agree. I had a discussion a long time ago at this point about having like AI judges because they should be, in theory, more fair, right? They're going to have the biases of a human judge. And I was stridently against that because it seems weird to say, but as a lefty or a liberal, I do believe humans have some modicum of compassion, which can be useful when you're deciding someone else's fate. That AI says, hey, we found you with exactly this amount of drugs, therefore you get exactly this amount of prison time. Sorry, no appeals. And because they have determined that is the correct way to
I do have a
operate their
question though
system.
on that. Is what if we come to a point in AI when we can program in compassion, or we can program in empathy? Would your answer change?
We should not do that at all. Right? Like
Technology
AI should only
Have
be
you
used
seen
for
iRobot?
menial tasks. Like, only menial tasks, nothing further. We shouldn't be programming morality into these
Yeah,
things.
my brain immediately jumps to the end of war games, right? Like I
how
don't
many
think we can
Terminator films?
Yeah. I don't think we can teach the
iRobot.
computer. I don't think we can teach the computer that playing the nuclear destruction game is a fail like every single time, like they did in war games. Okay, if the computer has some level of sentience, it's going to be unfortunate if it decides that it is more correct than humans. So putting it in a position of power to do so like that, I would say it'd be dangerous. If we could make them perfect empaths, maybe, but that's a situation I don't think we're getting to till there's space communism.
But
the
that's
AI
the thing.
we're talking about here aren't
That's
like
the
literally
thing.
these like artificial intelligences. We're talking about like driving robots, like things that stay on the road and go from point A to point
Right.
B.
And
the
those
question
are
of whether police cars should be automated, absolutely. Police robots, I think, is more interesting.
Right.
I know that like the basic argument for me is that if you have robots, you can probably make them much more transparent. I know that there's a really interesting study that when body cams were handed out as part of an Obama era program to police officers, there was a significant decrease in police brutality from the districts that got more body cams, and also a decrease in crime. So like it not only seems to benefit like the police officers, so to speak, but it also benefited like everyone in society essentially.
Well,
and I think the argument there is more transparency helped.
I would say,
Wait.
like, I would say in that example specifically, that's technology that can't be used lethally. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I've never heard of a police officer like beating someone to death with their body camera, right? Now, like, if we're talking about the way off hypothetical of like police robots and shit, Yeah, that can be used lethally against the citizens. Like you
Sure,
could
they can use cars lethally right now, right? Like if you want to give police officers cars, you can go on YouTube and Google a million videos of police officer ram suspect with cars, right? We give them
Oh
all
yeah,
kinds of lethal shit right now.
but what we're talking about when we're talking again, and I realize it's a high off hypothetical of like police robots, right? Like we're not talking about something like humans have to control, which is like the start of the debate, right? We're talking about something that like I'm imagining like semi-autonomous, where like they don't need a chaperone or something; they can do it by themselves.
Okay.
I don't know what type of programming would go into that, and I don't trust our police departments as it is to actually like make sure these aren't going to be like Terminators or some shit.
Well,
Like,
let's
but
go.
why do
Let's
you
go. Sorry.
assume-
Let's
but
go.
what-
Sorry. Let's go to tags. Chris, Amanda, and then Wick and Killer.
To answer your first question, personally, I don't know about you guys. I like human interaction, so I think like servers, that'd be nice. Go out and but I still think with all this said, I think maybe if places want to have just AI, they can choose to, but that's their business. But personally, the police thing, I think would be kind of interesting. Maybe firefighter AI would be nice, because then no one will lose their life in a dangerous situation, because they're not exactly like firefighters. They can take the heat, they don't melt, and well,
They can be
they
built
don't
not
need
to melt at
oxygen.
least.
The what?
They can be built not to melt at the very least.
Well, yeah, I mean, try at least. But they don't take oxygen and equipment, and obviously, with all this said, you would want some human, supervision. But personally, I don't want AI in, gentlemen's clubs. Personally, I think that'd be kind of weird. But no, with AI, I think that with some areas that's fine. But also, I mean, we just had our oil line hacked. I mean, say we have a force of AI police and they do get hacked. I mean, that would be kind of weird. Now, if you want to have an AI that just like directs traffic in New York construction zones, I'm all down for it. That's fine. But limiting the ability to actually affect the public, because we go back to, protect and serve, but something happens and it's no longer doing their job, are we going to say, oh, we're going to blame AI, or we're going to blame the police officers that, oh, you put an AI there, so therefore you couldn't save my son because it couldn't compute that this was life threatening enough for this AI to do something, because there's an accident to the left and it's immediate danger and it runs over there, danger Robinson, and it runs over and leaving someone else to be hurt, when a human could probably decipher which one's more important. So I think that
we literally had a movie about this. Like
Yeah, but-
RoboCop literally covered this, right? Like that
Okay,
was like
we
the
shouldn't
main
be-
premise. No, like unironically, that was the main premise. They were building autonomized police, and like the Ed 209s were malfunctioning. Like they had this weird little bug in them where they couldn't really tell when someone dropped a weapon. And what did? They gunned them the fuck down, right?
Exactly,
Like
yeah.
I don't know about you, Pyro, but I don't base my decisions based on Hollywood movies.
No, but
I don't make
like,
my policy
no, but
decision based on Hollywood movies.
You can,
And I think doing so is a little silly.
You can deride it all you want, right? But it brings up a good question. What if there is a small malfunction that, like, yeah, it happens?
Yeah.
Are we prepared for the after effects, like in putting these things within the public to do this job of policing, right? If there is a malfunction like that, right, where it's like, we can't tell if you disarmed yourself or not.
Yeah.
What happens when it takes the protective measures that we program into it? Who takes the responsibility for that? Are the police departments going to be willing to take responsibility
I will
for
say
that?
this on this, and I'll make it real quick. It is far easier to reprogram and to fix the bad programming of a robot than it is to deprogram and fix the bad
but
programming
when you're
of
on
a
the
live
spot,
robot.
but you're on the
Hold
spot.
on, beyond text. The thing is, like, with police departments right now, are they going to be willing to do that, or are they just going to ship it off as like, oh yeah, this is a tech problem?
Who says they're going to be
We're
in
police
charge
office.
of that? Who says that the police departments are going to be in charge of that? Why would
Well,
they? Why wouldn't we let other organizations?
Like, no, we can't.
I had a question for. Sorry for follow-up question for Beyond Tags.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
In regards to what he said, I just was wondering if I could understand your rationale behind why you're okay with like AI in this like restaurant, but not gentlemen's club, and why you're concluding such. Like, where's your logic here in regards to how we decide whether we have AI in certain areas and not?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to like a fast food place, I mean, I'm not gonna be like, all right, what, caring about how, my interaction with a cashier that gets paid, whatever. That just, if I go to a nice 5-star restaurant, maybe I do want that human interaction. Maybe I want the server to be like, "Would you like this wine today?" This and that. Because sometimes it's not just so much about the food. Sometimes it's the environment, the interaction you get with the servers, the hostess. But and like I said, anyone could choose this, right? So like say McDonald's, for instance. I mean, they're already kind of doing that whole replacing employees with burger flippers and all this other stuff. And I mean, you have self checkout. Some people just want to do self checkout. They don't want to deal with anyone, and they can make that decision for themselves. But I think it would still be nice that it's not mandated that you have to have AI. I still think it would be nice to still be able to be like, hey, let's go see a human server today. And I just think that like you can still do gentlemen's club if you want. I was saying for me personally, I don't feel like paying a robot. I don't know. It'd be kind of weird. But
So
you know,
based on basically how much interaction, like kind of like on an interaction level of.
yeah, I mean, like when you look at firefighters that are in there doing their thing, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on, versus you're stuck in traffic and you have an AI just directing traffic. I wouldn't expect too much from a a traffic directing robot than I would say, a firefighter or a police officer. I wouldn't want to give the robot that much control in every area of my life. I may still want that, to know that there's a human behind that versus, if I can cross the sidewalk or not. Doesn't really affect me too much.
Okay.
So.
Sure. Well, let's move on to Chris has been waiting, and then Wick, and then Killer.
Okay, yes, these police robots. When it comes to judging when it comes to moral judgments, we should leave that out of the hands of AI. We should only be putting like the AI to task on the most menial things, right? We should make it to where like we could help cops make less mistakes, right? So if we want to put an AI into the cop's gun, to where if that cop chooses to shoot, all right, that gun's going to choose the non-lethal target, right? Probably to disarm or to maim rather than to like just flat out kill, which a lot of cops do because they panic, right? They go straight for center mass because they just what they've been trained to do. Where if you put that task onto the AI, they can choose the smarter decision, right? To like not just take a life willy-nilly because they were panicked, right? We should like put the AI in the cops' vehicles because the AI will be able to make smarter decisions and not the moral decision. Like like when it comes to these things, like it's and also another thing is like when we do this, like right now our police is in the hands of the state, right? Our law enforcement is in the hands of the state, and assuming that that's not gonna change anytime soon, that's gonna be the same for when AI is put into play. We have these like robocops, right? So are we comfortable having our law enforcement in the hands of a state, especially one that could be potentially tyrannical or like fascist? So we have to really think about that. Yes, make it to where this AI could help cops make less mistakes and make smarter decisions, but not make the moral decisions. It's just like a slippery slope I do not want to go down.
The United States
Wick,
government with robocops is terrifying. I just want to say that.
Wick, Killer, Pyro.
Okay, 1 sec, my phone's ringing. Go move
Okay,
on. I'll take it.
Killer, Pyro, and then we'll put Wick.
All right. Well, to me, it seems. I find it very interesting that we suddenly become not comfortable putting AI in certain positions, especially with like things like policing, guns, and stuff like that, which to me makes perfect sense. But it just goes back to my point of like the moral decisions that it inherently will be forced to make. And it's interesting to me that we are perfectly fine having an AI drive 2-ton vehicle, but then we're suddenly not okay with it doing other actions that can have just as severe, if not worse, consequences.
Like
Um,
what?
well, you guys were just talking about policing.
Yeah,
You
but
you think
policing. But
that
I
you
gave
think
the
that
example
of
yeah,
well, I was expecting the example to be what we've been talking about for a little bit, but the example. So I'm trying to get my thing back up so I can see you guys.
So I think I can
I
give a
get
bit of an
So hold
So
on,
explainer
hold on,
for
hold
it.
on, hold on. Next, for Killer, are you done? Then we'll move on to.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
My example is just for things like policing. You guys are talking about robot Terminator teaching something and trying to tell it when to arrest someone, when not to, and then you guys agreed that in terms on how to arrest someone and stuff like that, it's going to have to follow some sort of moral code. But then allowing something, a machine that needs a moral code based on something requirements and the frameworks of driving in itself, suddenly is all right to you guys, and that's
There's
something I
no
just
way to
want
drive
people to.
morally. Like unless you're like, I mean, not running like over mass pedestrians like on the street. Like there's no way. Driving is a menial task. It's like it's not. You don't have to make moral decisions when driving. Only like law-abiding like decisions, right? Stay in this lane here. It's not a moral decision. Keep at this the speed limit. That's not a moral decision. That's just a menial one, right? So
Compared
like,
to law enforcement,
just
like driving is literally like nothing. It's literally like not a task you need to worry about. Like law
I
enforcement takes so many components that you need to mix together to actually do it well. And we already see as humans, we fail miserably. So the question then becomes, why would we want our dumb fucks to actually go and design an efficient machine to carry out our dumb fuck notions of justice, which we already know are flawed, right? And then like to Prime's the question that started all this, because like I gave the example of policing. Yeah, no, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, like we wouldn't want to like give
let me
our
kind of
morals to policing.
So hold on.
let
We
me
got
kind
a few
of
people. Actually, no, Wick, it's your turn. Anyway, Wick,
yeah
then cancel.
just Okay, just real quick though, when we talk about, there are obviously certain things we do not want an AI force of police or even AI cars to do. There are certain tasks we wouldn't want to put on that. However, there are a lot of situations where it will do a lot of good. If you have a hostage situation, or if you have a really dangerous bank robbery or something going out, to be able to send in some sort of AI police that we don't care if it dies. I mean, obviously it might cost us some money, but they can perform services that are they can do better than humans. And when we talk about like the ethics and morality of who to arrest, I think as it stands now, no, I wouldn't want an AI police force. But if technology advances sufficiently and AI advances sufficiently, I think there will come a point where we will have better outcomes. And I know it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's uncomfortable to think of a machine having the decision making capacity in these things. And I know there's a danger to it. But if we can demonstrate that it will lead to better outcomes, I think it is a good thing to do.
I mean, but
Wick,
like that's just a milk toast argument, right? Like,
no,
yeah, far off in the future, we might reach a point where it can actually work. And yeah, at that point, yeah, maybe we should implement it. But until then,
Cancel.
you're right, Wick.
Okay, yeah. So I think I can answer Killer Sig's question a little more effectively because I was one of the people who said I was opposed to having the AI for judging, but I'm okay with it for driving, right? So the question isn't, hey, is there AI making moral decisions? Because it still will have to do some of that. It'll have to choose to, stop a car so it doesn't hit that pedestrian. Sure. The problem here specifically is about having them have a higher power structure than you. We already use AI for things like autopilot on planes, and we don't really have any issue with this, even though sometimes it fucks up and we have a plane crash and that sucks. It's a good example of it not being perfect. We'll still allow that because it's not making some moral choice. It didn't make a moral choice to, land to crash that plane. Instead, it was more, there was more utility to allowing this machine to do this process. When it comes to something like policing and judging right now, even if we had perfect programming, I would say it's very likely that, as Pyro pointed out, the AI manages to oppress a certain group more than another. That would be negative, and a thing that we might not be able to check if the AI has the inherent hierarchical power structure above humans. If they are our judges, how do we tell them they are wrong? Sure, we control the programming for them, but then they aren't really judges and their ethics weren't perfect. It's basically a never-ending question.
So Killer.
So right now,
Killer,
you can't answer whether or not it'd be a good idea.
So Killer, you can. Then we'll go to Tags and Chris.
Thank you. So for me, though, if you're going to mandate and you say that you're not allowed to drive any vehicles, period, unless there's an AI in it that's driving for you, I would say that AI inherently has a higher power structure over you in terms of driving. That we no longer trust you to drive a vehicle and for you to ever use one or get inside one, and you're never allowed to turn it off or anything or disable it. You have to have the AI driving it for you. So suddenly now you've got something that's got a higher power structure over in society than you.
Well, I actually
that's the
wanted
thing.
to
That's
ask
why-
a question
Real
before we moved.
Pyro. That's why I use the example of planes, because we already do that with planes. We already say, hey, like you have to be very, very specifically trained and educated to fly a plane, and if not that, then it's a robot. So like you or I can't just go fly a plane. That's a reasonable restriction because we're not good enough to fly that plane.
No.
And even though I didn't agree with it, if we were in a
Well,
situation where it was, 2, 3, 4 times safer to have these driverless cars, and clearly humans don't make good car pilots.
Okay, first off, though, it's just like with driving. You've got a license to drive. We accept that. I've never gone inside a plane and been like, "Oh, where's the pilot?" And they're like, "Oh, the AI is driving it today." No, there's still a pilot in there.
Well,
We still
Killer.
fall
Well,
back to
hold on, Killer
pilot.
Sieg. The question I was gonna ask this before the conversation moved on to a broader topic. Would the panel be in favor of like an emergency manual control or some type of manual control where like if you needed to for some reason, if there was some glitch, if something happened with the car's AI system, you could take control of the car and like safely pull it over or something. You could take control of the car and actually drive it.
Yeah, certainly, but there
got
should
in
be
trouble,
and that's the round. Thank you, everyone, for that. It was a good discussion. It was especially got interesting near the end there. Thanks so much for that. Okay, to my audience, I gotta explain this every time because people seem to forget every time. All right, to my audience, we're going to vote, or you're going to vote, as to which one of these individuals you want to stay around. Right. So I'm going to put a poll in chat. You're going to vote for who to keep, not who to kick, okay? Which one of these individuals gets to stay on to the next round, not who like you dislike, okay? So whoever you found the most interesting, most likable, most informative, whatever your criteria are, vote for that person, okay? Vote for who you want to stay, right? I want to go. We'll have 5 minutes to do so, 5 minutes. Also, the other rule that I forgot to mention, and I'll let the contestants know, if I feel, once per game, if I feel that an elimination, so once we get to the elimination part, that elimination was like either incorrect or just like you took away someone who's too interesting, I might step in, right? So I can do that once per game and save someone. Now someone's still going to be eliminated, right? So the other person who was up for elimination, they'll be tossed out. But once per game, I can have reserve the right to save someone. We all good? All right.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. So I'm going to put that link in chat. 1 second. All right. So putting that link in chat, you have 5 minutes. 5 minutes to vote. 5 minutes. So here we go. All right. Vote right now. Vote right now. You have 5 minutes to vote. After that 5 minutes, we end the voting round. No complaints afterwards, though. There's complaints every fucking time because people don't seem to understand simple fucking instructions. Anyway, vote. Links in chat. Please vote right now. Vote right now for which one of these individuals you want to keep on to the next round, not who you want to kick. So you guys can have some time to talk.
Yeah, it was a good topic.
Yeah, we're better than I
I mean,
expected.
like it went to the only place it could have went. Really, let's be real.
Could I just say what I was gonna say right before? I didn't know the round was gonna, and it's kind of feeding off everyone. I think all I was gonna say was with everything going on, it's like are we gonna have the company who's making the AI or the code be as accepted by the left, the right, everybody, like with police interactions, because look at our military, right? We go to war, we have AIs. Not everybody that agree, they just go like the Marine Corps and this and that, and it's like who's programming it? People who want to, you know what I mean? It kind of, I think it starts getting weird.
To answer your question, I am a little worried about a future Raytheon AI, right? Like we'd have to find a company that most people agree on, and that's going to be hard to do.
Bethesda. It's got to be Bethesda.
We as humans can't even agree. I mean, look at that. What color is this dress? I mean, come on, you're gonna get an AI to tell everyone they're wrong. I mean, it's gonna be difficult.
we already do this thing when it comes to companies where we have companies where we trust them more than others, right? This like say an engine, you have to rely on a company's skill at crafting like
Yeah.
a good engine over another company's, right? You have to rely on it working the way it's supposed to, and you have no control over that really from inside the car when you're driving it. It's going to work the same way. There's going to be
Well,
like
yeah.
safety standards, and whoever is reaching those standards will have more awards, and like they'll have more recognition.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
obvious.
like
Those awards are
if something
bullshit. I'll just say
happens,
that. Those quote unquote
Yeah,
awards are
yeah.
complete bullshit for cars.
That's true too.
but
But
like if
we
something,
gotta
We gave ourselves the
recognize
best
that.
car of the year award.
Yeah, there are challenges to this implementation, but in this hypothetical, and it is a hypothetical. I have, I don't want to misrepresent myself in any
It's a
way.
wild one.
Yeah, this is something down the road. This isn't something tomorrow. This is something 10 years from now or so. But under the conditions of the question, again, if it works better. Now, I am curious, Pyro Tyrant, when you say you have a manual override, an emergency manual override, I would agree with something like that being there, but I also would say that would you be in favor of there being some sort of penalty or some sort of a censure if someone were to use it inappropriately, to use the emergency and override and then cause an accident when the AI
I
can be
mean, like,
demonstrated not to have done so.
if they use the override and it causes an accident, there should definitely be a punishment for that, right? Like, I see it the same as like you pull a fire extinguisher in a school for a joke and like someone gets trampled to death. Like, you caused harm, whether you meant it or not. Like, yeah, there should be a penalty, like if you falsely use this thing or not, and if you cause an accident specifically, right? Like, I don't know how I would feel if you just used it.
So I just want to say we have less than 90 seconds on the clock. Please vote. Vote right now. Jump on in. This is the time. This is the time. Vote, or you will regret when your favorite person gets tossed out. It's up to you. So vote right this second. Vote right this second. All right. Less than a minute left on the clock. Vote right now. The links are in chat. Vote right this second. You can keep going, Pyro.
Oh yeah, like that was basically it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would say that's okay. The thing is, and the reason why I think AI in the future will just be a better thing is that in an emergency situation, people mess up. People
Well,
don't make the right decisions. They don't
to
make the
that
right calls.
comment specifically, I'd say, like, how far in the future are we talking about,
I
right?
have
Like,
no idea. I
if we're
cannot know
talking,
that.
but that matters, right? If we're talking about within the next 10 years, no, I don't think someone should be penalized if they take over their car or drive. I don't think this should be something that should be like completely, required in 10 years, right? If we're talking about 50 years, 75, 80, 90, when we actually hammer out this technology and actually work out most of the kinks, yeah, maybe we can actually implement it to a point where, like, if you pull the emergency switch, it lets your insurance know, and like maybe you don't get arrested or something, but like you get a fine on your insurance for a ridiculous amount to try and like make sure you don't want to do that.
Okay, all right. That's it. Thank you so much for those who voted. Thank you so much for participating. All right, so refreshing the page, and wow, first time ever. Wick, #1. Oh man, Wick. Ugh, it's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming. You've been here, even doing good work, I think, right? You've been making a lot of good points. But you made good points before. You were never acknowledged. But now, all right. Let's put you in the winner's circle. Only for winners. All right. Wick, nice work. You put in the work. You did. I don't know. You should be very proud of yourself, buddy. All right. So next, on the top is SocDoneLeft. SocDoneLeft. There you go. #2 here. Okay. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right. Great. And from the bottom, we have Pyro Tyrant, buddy. I think you were crushed it. I thought you did a great job.
It's because I don't have any viewers. I have like one viewer right now. I gotta like ingratiate myself in the communities more. Like SocDoneLeft is a streamer, and like he prompted Wick up right before it. Man, I gotta come in like heavier next time. I know.
Like SocDoneLeft spoke like one time. I don't know how.
Yeah, like it's the
It was a
audience.
very
Like,
interesting
no,
singular
no,
sentence.
no, we know exactly what happened. SocDoneLeft was talking to his audience while we were doing the panel, and his audience was like, "Yeah, he made some good points to us, but not the panel."
I actually couldn't find the link, so I couldn't link it to them.
God damn it. Yeah, sure.
Oh, no.
That's what we're going with. The streamer had technical. Okay, sure.
Okay, all right. Well, that's what it is. And if anyone is upset about that, well, next time, fucking vote. It's really that simple. All right, so moving on. We will now go into elimination round. What will happen here is that the bottom three will be begging the top two to stay. All right, and so at some point, Wick and SocDoneLeft will DM me the name of the person that they want to go. All right, so that'll happen. Now it will go to Pyro. 30 seconds on the clock. Why should Wick and SocDoneLeft keep your on?
Okay, listen, even though I just came at you, SocDoneLeft, I still talked more than most people on the panel right now, right? Like, in Wick, I may have disagreed with you, but this is the Primetime Royale. I know we're friends and everything, but, like, you gotta come with the spice. You either stay in or you stay out. And right now, I don't think most of the people here actually said anything of substance that warrants me to fucking leave. Like, we talked about my hypothetical for most of the conversation because, let's be real, it was more interesting than the topic of like cars. Like policing and robots? Yeah, sure. Like a lot of people were faltering with the issue of cars, let's be real. And I was one of them. 100% Scout's honor. But I still talked more than most people here. I offered more opinions. I offered the hypotheticals that we talked about. I engaged you. I
Okay, I'm
engaged
just gonna say right
SocDoneLeft.
off left. I'm gonna put my PayPal in chat, and whoever sends me the most gets to stay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But
All right, cancel.
So I would say, hey, Wick, that's clearly not very nice to me because I can't send you a fat paycheck. But hey, you should still choose me to stay on because I thought we had the most interesting conversation back and forth. It felt like for a good portion of that panel that it was you and Pyro's back and forth with me and a couple other people coming around the side of it. I think that the future topics will be far more interesting, so I'd like to stay around for those effectively. Also, the last time I was on the Royale, I consistently got last place, so an easy competition, okay?
Killer.
I'm kind of confused because was I supposed to get Wick's PayPal account? Because I ended up getting his OnlyFans.
that was a joke.
Oh, the OnlyFans? Okay. But no, I mean, the main reason why I want to stay is because a person in chat wants me to leave so I can start brewing on stream and stuff, and I want to be a masochist to them and not let them get what they want.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
Simple enough. All right, Wick, SocDoneLeft. You will send an individual DM to me, one of these names, as to which one of these people you want to go. All right. So, please don't take long. Okay. Oh, that's one. All right. Next. Any second now. It's coming. I'm sure it is. Just a moment. We'll be right there. Everyone is waiting on pins and needles, and the votes are in. Oh boy. This is tough. I feel like these guys, all of these guys actually did a really good job participating. So I just want to say that all of you did actually a fantastic job. But someone's got to go. Someone's got to lose. Killer, we're starting with you. Killer, you've been tossed out, unfortunately, right? Dreams broken. But Killer, we're happy to have you back, and we'd love to have you back in the future, buddy.
It's okay. It's the third time in a row that I've been the first one off, literally, since I've started coming on here. So I just wanted to keep this.
When was the last time you were here? Were you on the original? Because I remember we had like an alpha and a beta test of this. Were you there?
There was one with Marcy. I'd have to get the people, but I can't remember exactly when this was, but yeah, I've been voted off every time, and that was just gonna be my joke. I want to keep the streak going, people.
Okay.
But yeah, have a good one, everybody. Keep the chats up and keep the memes going.
All right, thanks so much, Killer. Have a good one. All right. And next, following Killer out the door. Yes, it's true. Cancel. You didn't make it this time.
Yeah, okay.
Cancel. Yeah. Please tell the world something. Spill your tears.
Well, I feel okay. Yeah, I feel very interesting here because I thought that we were only voting one up. So, oof. Given that, hey, you can find me on Twitch TV/Cancel the Communist. I enjoy having these debates. I look forward to coming back around again if you have the opportunity. Prime. Have a good rest of the panel.
All right, have a good one. All right, bye, you two. Okay. To the rest, we will continue on, and the next topic. All right. I think I have it in front of my face. I never have them in front of my face when I say that. Next topic means I have to look for the topics. All right. All right. So beyond basic regulations such as safety, should the government have any say at all in the curriculum or operations of private schools? 35 minutes left on the clock. Jump at it.
Yes, they should have regulations on standards when it comes to topics and things learned in these private schools. There can be a lot of toxic things going around that are being mandated in these places, especially if you're in a religious institution, that are pretty yikes. And I think those things should be looked at closely and regulated, because you end up with things like this topic we talked about beforehand with these what were the schools for these indigenous kids that they were kidnapping, the Catholic Church is kidnapping, right? If we had a closer eye on things
Thanks
like
so
that
much,
to stop things like that
Joe.
from happening,
Thank you.
even if it doesn't
you so
involve
much
like
for the
killing
raid.
kids, or like just learning things
Everyone go
that are
follow Joe.
completely, detrimental to society. I guess I'll just say that things we
Thank you,
don't
Ashley, for the
find
resub.
we find reprehensible as a society that should not be being taught to kids.
We should also make sure the government's involved, because like teaching standards, right? Like we need to make sure teachers are up to standards when like they're passing their exams and shit. They're actually making it through the institutions they need to actually teach our children. Like anecdote Andy time, I've went to several private schools by pure dumb luck. And one thing I found out is like a lot of the teachers in the math department had not passed like their exams that they needed to be math teachers, and then they're trying to disseminate that information to me, someone who's clinically stupid and does not understand math, and you just run into like several train wrecks right there. Like we need to make sure our students and our children are getting the best.
I know. So in Maryland, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go, and then we'll go to Wick, and then tags.
The governor was trying to set up a program to fund private schools, like charter schools, the Boost program, and I looked through all the schools that they were considering funding, and a sixth of them had policies that prohibited like LGBT teachers, and I think like a fifth of them had creationism explicitly in their curriculum. So like not only are private schools like enormously religious in this country, but they're also like teaching the worst types of like evangelical Christianity. So I don't know, like absolutely, yeah, there should be regulations on them. I'm not really even sure that private schools should exist as a major institution or homeschooling, because I think that we have an obligation to teach every child free of indoctrination, like the basics of life for them to succeed. But if they are to exist, absolutely, the state should have a large role in determining who can work there, what students can go there, and what teachers can say.
Wick.
Okay, so I do agree with the sentiment that's been expressed that there needs to be some level of control that the government can have, even on private educational institutions. There has to be. We talked about SocDoneLeft mentioned hiring practices and things like that that were discriminatory against LGBT. We talked about a lot of, Pyro Tyrant mentioned standards. That definitely has to be a thing that needs to be, the government needs to be able to have a hand in. There are a lot of lines you can draw here, a lot of different places we can do. I'm pretty radically anti-censorship. I'm pretty radical free speech, but I'm not a free speech absolutionist. So I think I would take a lighter touch and a lighter hand than a lot of people here. I could be wrong, but when it comes to standards, yes, 100% yes. When it comes to hiring practices and who can be let in, and discriminatory practices against letting people in, 100% yes. But when it comes to preventing certain topics or certain things from being taught in certain ways. I feel if the student can still meet the standards of testing or whatever the government decides is the correct measures, if the students that are coming out of these schools can still meet those standards, I would be hesitant to restrict what can be taught and how it can be taught too much.
Yeah, I don't think we should be restricting like too heavily. Like, right? If you want to go to a Christian school, I don't think we should be like just like stripping things from the Bible to be taught from the schools. But I just think we should be like making sure that we're not, raising up a bunch of like assholes. You know what I mean? So like,
Go ahead.
oh, I thought you were something. Like, so say like when it comes to like LGBTQ things, we should look closely at that, especially if there's kids being like, discriminated against or like treated wrongly because of these things that are being taught in these schools. There should be regulations against that. I think we talked about the topic recently about when it comes to using like children's pronouns. I think that government should like mandate that. It's a form of bullying if you are like misgendering kids and you're using your religion as an excuse to do so. Yeah.
So let's go to tags. I think Amanda had her hand up, and then Pyro.
See, this one's kind of an interesting, a topic because on one hand, everyone talks about, oh, you're brainwashed by the government. If you're in the military, you're brainwashed, this and that, and indoctrination of, what kind of books are out there, are being presented in front of kids, and then you had the government talk about, the whole Dr. Seuss scandal, that whole thing, right? So it's kind of interesting because it's kind of like, are we going to allow only the government to decide that? Now, if you're talking about standards, if a teacher is, a a radical, they should probably kind of like figure out where that person's education level is, but also, will there be an issue later down the path? You talk about, are they actually going to do that if they meet the standards? But controlling the whole school as a government in general, then you start getting into that whole indoctrination thing. Our kids are being taught what the government wants and this and that. Now, you do have private schools that kind of can relieve that. And if you want to send your kid to private school, but that costs money. I believe that for the standardized education, I think that we should have a you know a baseline for where should our kids read at, where should they know math at, but maybe even regulate. Okay, maybe we don't teach this, but the thing is that stopping teachers from implementing their own ideas, you're not going to just simply do that because you put the government in there. Some teachers are just not going to listen, just like people don't listen all the time. So I think that having regulations are fine. Um, and it shouldn't be just up to the school like, oh, we're going to allow this because this is our school. No, there should still be a standard. But it should also just come down to the education department, because the education department is kind of in charge of all that, and they should be the ones to know what they should raise: math, English, and this and that. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting one. But
Amanda, Pyro, Wick, Chris.
Yeah, I guess I agree with Wick. I think when it comes to, we have separation of church and state here. Public schools can't teach certain things, which is why a lot of private schools pop up, is so people can have that freedom to be taught the religion while in school. So in that regards to what they're learning, I guess the only test is, are they succeeding getting into college? And if not, then I guess the private school will probably fizzle out, right?
Yeah. Pyro, Wick, Chris.
Well, Amanda and Wick, I'll just hit it perfectly on the nail on the head, because I was going to ask, like, this is quickly becoming a question, like, what standard are we going to keep to these schools to make sure that their students are actually, like, making it through school, as the saying goes, right? Like, if we're not going to monitor, like, are we going to monitor their test scores and, like, make sure they're passing their college entrance exams? And, like, if we're not going to put such a heavy focus on there, then what? Like, how do we determine what these schools are teaching and if they're right? And, like, how do we go in and, like, basically censor what they're teaching, right? Like, at what level do we kind of draw that line? And like I think Wick brought up a good point with the censorship, because like it becomes that when the government has to go in and like, okay, you're a private school and we get that, but it seems like for some reason you're not putting out the standard that we would like. We want to change shit so you can be better. Like, is that something we're willing to do?
Let's go to Wick, Chris, then Tax.
You know what? I think that is something we're willing to do. That if a school is not meeting its standards, whether it be private or public, that something needs to change, and the government should have the ability to have some a limited form of input in that case. Now, SocDoneLeft mentioned the values, whether or not homeschooling or private schools have value. I live in a Mennonite neighborhood. Most of my I call it my mountain fortress. I live in Pennsylvania, as a large rural community. Everyone around me is Mennonite, and they have their own private school that they send their kids to because they believe that they should have prayer in school. They should be able to have some kind of religious activities in school, and this is something they choose to do, and this is something that they believe in, and so I see no harm in that. And this allows people who are religious to have that in their school and to have that upbringing that they want. And as long as it's not discriminatory, as long as it's not hurting their education, I see there's a value for that. Would I want my kids going to it? No. But just because I don't want something doesn't mean no one will want something. And I like that is an option. I think that should be an option.
I fundamentally disagree that this is something that society should pursue. Parents shouldn't be able to decide that their children are going to be raised in XYZ religion just because they are. Parents shouldn't be able to get that level of control over their children. That's de facto what you're allowing when you're allowing them to get religious education like this. Not only are they being raised in their religion, so, once a week propaganda sessions, they're getting, 5 days a week plus extracurricular propaganda sessions.
But then, would you outlaw church? Would you outlaw bringing kids to church? That doesn't make sense.
That's your contention. That's your contention right now.
Pyro. Yeah, just real quick, Pyro. But yeah, when you go into that kind of government overreach and government controls, it becomes very authoritarian. We shouldn't be able to tell just because you and I may agree that religion is ultimately harmful. There are good things to be religion. To religion, it's not all cons. I think it's mostly cons, but this isn't a decision that the government needs to make.
Doesn't make it justified to indoctrinate people into it.
That's not a good point, Wick. The point I was gonna make is at what because I see your point, SocDoneLeft, but when you say it like that, at what point do we draw the distinction between these indoctrination religious sessions between homeschooling or private schooling and then church, right? Because we know there are some advanced schools, some advanced elementary and high schools that do try and follow a college level schedule that is you don't have class every day. You might have class once a week or twice a week. What do we do in situations like that? And would church fall into this category then? Because I understand you're worried about children, but we can't take it too far, man. Parents do have control.
My answer is sorry. My answer is political feasibility. Right now, I think that children are en masse being indoctrinated by their parents. This is authoritarianism, not by the government, but by individuals, right? Society can force. Involved. Well, rather, it's getting the parents uninvolved. It's trying to make children as free to make their own choice as possible.
Getting the parents uninvolved with the government.
But the parents are going to have so much influence on the kid just because that's how our family, that's how our culture sets up families, and you cannot remove that influence. You just can't.
Yeah. Sure, also, you can't remove it completely, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to minimize it, right? And I think that the degree we're talking about here is hard to understate. You're talking about, think about how long it takes to do work each week. That's more or less, I went to Catholic school for 7 years, for what it's worth. So, I have some comprehension of this. And it is, nonstop in your face. We prayed once before class. We had weekly and sometimes bi-weekly or tri-weekly mass, right? It is in your face. I don't know.
Go ahead, Chris. Chris and
unfortunately, freedom of religion is a staple in our country. If I agree that we shouldn't be violating people's rights, right? That's why I want transparency in these schools, right? If a child has gone to the school for a couple of years and they're I don't want to be here anymore, this religious institution, and they don't want to go through that, I think it's their right to not have to be in a religious school. I think we should that's a good conversation to have. But to say that parents at no point should be able to send their kids to these schools or teach them this religion, I think that's kind of that is getting to be like little, if not a lot, of authoritarian, right? The child should be able to choose whether or not they want to continue to like practice, which I was able to
So
do, right? I grew up like in a religious household. I still came out as atheist and me, and like I still had a parent that didn't violate my rights when it came to choosing what I wanted to follow or practice as religion.
so
So
some parents are totally fine with like letting their children choose with religious freedom, but many parents aren't. I think the rate of like children staying in the same religion as that of their parent is something like 60%. It's a really high rate actually, and that's just from being raised in the same household. That's not even like accounting for stuff like religious schools. Um,
I
Well,
I
that
guess if I were to,
that statistic is not just applied to religion. We could look at politics. You're most
sure,
likely to be the
yeah,
same political party as your family. But is that is a side effect of the way we raise children today in our culture, and I do not think it is helpful to try to change that because I think it's a fundamental thing of human nature as culture exists today. That I just think trying to fix that is going to lead to some real bad outcomes. It's really dangerous, and I'm totally against
Let's
it.
go.
Hard disagree.
Let's go to tags and then Amanda.
So, as I was listening to you guys, yeah, I mean, but this is the thing, though. I mean, you guys are kind of talking about, the choose of private and this and that, but it's not even just that. It's the fact that, say, you go to California, you don't like how they're doing their teaching, you could just move states. And the fact that, the standard of in this state might be a little different than that, say, because you believe you're in a red state versus a blue state, or, whatever the case may be. But the thing is that we're talking about, say, standardized math, the government making sure that the math tests are good. But I think what the biggest thing is that where I'm coming from with this part is that allowing the private schools to exist and doing what they do because, maybe you don't want your kid to go to school where critical race theory is actually a course. Maybe you can have it as an elective, and you don't want your kid to be a part of that because of XYZ or, whatever the case may be. So having a generalized standard of the government, math and, because I know that like the history, I've been hearing a lot of stories about how some teachers, they won't teach a certain part of the history because they don't agree with it or they'll kind of change it up. And we can't be kind of confusing the kids. Like if it's facts, it should be facts. And if you feel like, this county is not what you don't want, you heard, bad teachers are over at this county. As a parent, I'm pretty sure you would be like, well, let's find a good school district that my kid could go to Harvard from or get the best education because I have a kid on the way. Personally, I'm going to be doing either private school. I'm not religious, but I believe private school for my kid might be the best option, and not because of everything going on, but because out here, the school systems aren't notoriously known. They're okay, but I just think that, I know we have a really good private school out here and it's Christian. I'm not Christian, but they rate really well and I want to have the best future for my kid. So I think that, as you were talking about the indoctrination of parents and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if they do that to their kid, I mean, they're just going to do that to their kid. But you as a parent, you have the freedom to choose. If you want to go private, if you want to do military school, charter school, you have those abilities to broaden how you want your kid to learn because in the end we all are going to reflect what we want our kid to kind of learn in the end we all kind of indoctrinated whether it's indoctrination of full freedom or indoctrination of a certain way. So I mean I
um,
don't,
So let's go
yeah.
to
I have
Amanda.
to,
So let's go to Amanda, SocDoneLeft, and then Chris.
Yeah, I think that back to Sogdon's point, I
you
just
can call
want
me
him to
Aiden.
say, sorry, what is it? Oh,
If you want, you can call me Aiden if it's easier.
okay, thank you. Uh, were you like suggesting that you kind of remove parents' influence when it comes down? Like, I guess, yeah, that threw me
You
off
can't
there.
remove it, but you should try to reduce it. Yeah, you shouldn't be enabling parents to subject children to like XYZ degree of propaganda. Like to make an analogy, let's say that there was like a Nazi school or a Democrat school or a Republican school, and you could send your kid there, and every week they'd have a mass extolling Bernie Sanders and extolling Joe Biden and extolling all of the leaders of the Democratic Party. You think that's fucking insane? That's what we do with religion right now.
Yeah, I guess so there's always already like, you know, regulations and stuff in regards to that, especially so parents already don't have parental rights under the Constitution. It's actually a really interesting topic, but I think, you know, it just sounds like in a lot of these arguments, an overreach of government, in my opinion, and I'm totally against that. So,
Do you want you go ahead, Soulker?
I mean, so I think that there is concern of government overreach, but we're already living in the world of like parental and religious overreach. I think it's hard to overstate the impact that religions have on our culture and our politics. And it's hard to understate the impact that it has on like literally indoctrinating children. It's something like 20 to 30% of this country believes in creationism. How do you run a country that like has people with such divergent views and such divergent views of like how facts form and how science works? It's a lot harder.
Go ahead, Chris, Pyro.
There's a few things I'm gonna push back on. I'll go with beyond tax. You brought up that like the idea of private schools not wanting to teach, say, critical race theory. I think that's one of the things that should be a standard when it comes to the government regulating these things, right? I think because of things like critical race theory being completely ignored in private schools, it's given it's allowed racism to run rampant within these institutions because there's so little minority participation in these schools, either because of financial or like just mostly financial, right? Financial situations. A lot less minorities are able to participate in these things, and when they do participate, right, they have to deal with tons of issues when it comes to racism, and that's because like we are like schools are able to say, private schools are able to say, like, oh, we don't want to teach critical race theory. Matter of fact, we don't even want to go into much Black history or anything like that at all. We don't want to like teach empathy when it comes to LGBTQ individuals or people of color. We want to just, hey, just focus on these subjects. Like our students will like be just fine. But in like what we do is like we create these like bubbles that students learn in, and when they go out to wider society, they interact with people kind of harmfully. So I think when I brought up before wanting to the government to regulate things like that, that's the reason why, is because like these private schools are able to teach what they like how they want, so they can exclude subjects and they can exclude when it comes to like who they want to teach their children to empathize with. It's mostly just empathizing with like their white neighbors, right, and their religion, and that's it. And because of that, you still have a bunch of racists in this country who are just existing, and it's never going to go away because we don't do anything to try to like remedy the situation. And then SocDoneLeft, even though I agree with you about religion, right? It's like it's going a little too far when we. So yes, I think we should like limit the influence on kids, but like I just don't agree with not like allowing parents to like enter their kids into say a religious school, especially if like the child may want to anyway. Like a lot of kids are just like they grow up with that and they're okay with it, and then they later learn that they're not. But I don't. We get into a more of an ideal type of future that we want to have that for a leftist society that would make more sense, I think. But like we have to consider other people's thoughts on this, and I just think it would cause way too much problems when we start stripping rights for parents to do things like that with their kids.
Pyrowick.
Can I get a response?
Yeah, to
sorry,
that, no.
it was a direct response. Go ahead. You can respond to that, and then we'll go to Pyro, and then like.
Okay.
I mean, I was just gonna say. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Am I able to respond?
Tag, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry, new here.
It's okay.
So I mean, and absolutely. I mean, if you want your kid to be involved in the critical race theory, we'll take that as an example, like you pointed out. I mean, I never had that, you know, and I'm not a racist, right? And some areas might need it more than others, right? But also, you're also saying that, you know, I'm talking about teaching the kids facts, right? Okay, you're talking about the history. 1984, this happened. This is a fact, right? 1 + 1 is 2. Do we want to open up, say, something like critical race theory that is a standardized, and then fight back when we bring up that Jesus, religion? Well, we might have come from, you know, God or science. Like, where do we draw the line once we open up one top? Hold on, open one topic of a theory, because it is a theory, right? Now, are we able to teach don't hate people of color. Absolutely, sure, that's fine. But having a standard for it seems kind of weird, But the fact that it should also be on the parents. You can't say, "Oh, well, my kid's racist because the school system failed me," right? It comes down to the parents teaching their kid right from wrong.
But what if
Racism
those
wrong, don't do it.
these things run in cycles? If their parents aren't taught it, and their parents weren't taught it, and their parents weren't taught it, like that's because like there was nothing in there to introduce that to them, right? There was no like critical race theory introduced in the first place. Because if we were only going to rely on parents, then you're going to have to travel down the line and see where at any point did were any of these people like taught to look at within themselves to see if they had any racial biases that needed to be kind of stamped out, or just to be taught how to empathize with people different from them to begin with, right? We say, yeah, just be good to other people, but there's a whole lot more context that goes into this, right? It's more than just that. Not all racism is just blatantly in your face, like calling people slurs, right? It's like a lot deeper than that. It's a lot more complicated, and that's what critical race theory goes through. It goes through these complicated topics, and it introduces you to them, and it allows you more to understand, right? It's not trying to brainwash you with these things. It's just trying to like introduce you to these things, let you know about them, and like try to have you like you know contemplate those things within yourself, right? There's group discussions and things like that go on. It's not just like sit you down, here's a book on how not to be racist, right? And the teacher's just like giving 4-hour lectures on like why you're like this white devil or this evil racist, right? It's not that. It's
Well,
it's
and
about how
that's
to,
Yeah, I just
well, and
there's a
that's
lot of
my point, though. Like, I mean, and that's what I'm saying is that when we teach our kids math, it's a standard of formula. Like, this is how you count. This is it. Now, having it an option at a school, just like band, just like football team, sure, you can promote having something like that and available to the kids that if they wanted to take it, that's fine. But how do you standardize that? I mean, how would you go about standardizing that? Because 1 + 1 is 2, but then you have a theory. Now, if you want to have like
Have you ever heard of
like
feel
sociology?
you
Well,
teach theories
Part of
on
the
the
can I
system.
scale.
no,
actually?
but we're
just
talking about a
Uh,
standardized test.
I was
Go
actually
ahead.
in line.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So like if we're gonna talk about critical race theory for a second, like one of the things that like when we talk about critical race theory, like Chris like hit it somewhat on the head on like what it is. Like it's not like I don't think it's this thing where we're trying to teach people like, oh, you need to be guilty or you need to feel sorry for some. Like from what I've come to understand of critical race theory, because like I've had several discussions on Wick's channel, deathofcertainty.twitch.tv, it's more or less like trying to understand the history of this country from the framework of people we usually don't learn about. Because, like, when we talk about shit like history, right? Like, we learn about the same 4 wars, we learn about the same several social conflicts, and then we learn about it in the same way. I mean, like, we're in 2021, and there are still people with textbooks depicting the civil rights movement like it was in like it was in black and white, like it was 150 years ago when like those photos were in color, right? Like there are things we kind of gloss over in the way we teach these things now that critical race theory seeks to address. It may not be perfect, and when it comes to our educational system, I think we can address that as we see where the imperfections lay. But like, I don't think it's something that we should dismiss wholesale. Also, SocDoneLeft to the point about like religion and shit. Like, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we would want the government to get involved on that level personally with people and like telling them like here's what you can and can't introduce your children to, and we're going to impose limits on that, right? I don't think you're full sale saying get rid of religion, but like I still think about that. Like, how would we actually go about letting the government come in and being like, yo, we don't like what this is doing for the society, maybe tone this down? Are they going to be like, well, what? I don't agree with that.
Okay, I just wanna jump in here to kind of like I feel like most people don't really understand what critical race theory is. So I'm just gonna be real quick with this. I'm gonna get back to the topic. Critical race theory doesn't give any solutions to the problem. It's just a tool that we can use to point out problems, to recognize different power dynamics and how they come in play when it regards specifically to race. There are two important principles to critical race theory: the principle of neutrality and the principle of power. And if you want to look that up, you can. We don't have the time or the resources to go into it on this panel in depth. But this is something that is a tool that, yes, if it's taught incorrectly, it can be bad, just like anything. You can't have standards for it. You can't have ways and training to make sure it's done correctly. But to act like it's some boogeyman is just incorrect. It's just false. When we come down to doing private schools, this is why it's important to have standards. So even if a private school wanted to teach critical race theory, we need to have standards in place so that they can do it right. If a school wanted to teach math, we need a principles in place. We need standards in place so even private schools can do it correctly. There are ways to do this. There are solutions that don't involve stripping away the rights of parents. Because if you leave everything up to a kid, I didn't want to go to school at all. I just wanted to like pull chocks and get out. You know what I mean? So there has to be some sort of limitations imposed on the rights of a child to make a choice. Now, I do believe that children should have the right to decide more than they do now, but the solutions proposed here are just very, very bad. That's all.
Also, we teach theories all the time in
So-
school. Just want to point that out.
SocDoneLeft has been waiting.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry,
wasn't like
just
raising
wanna
my
make
hand or anything.
All right. Go ahead. Beyond. Tags. Beyond.
Okay, sorry. All right. I mean, now, and this is what I'm gonna say. Like, okay, so you can't standardize it. But let's just say, my kid goes to public school, right? And where I am, I just don't want to introduce my kid to critical race theory because I have my own personal reasons, right? Whatever the case may be. Now, are we gonna allow people to say opt out of it, like sex education? And that's what I mean. And we're talking about a standard, right? We want to teach our kids, 1+1, science. You mix these elements together, you get this, and history. This is 1984. Like it's just the basics for them to then choose for themselves where they want to take their education, right? But we're also not teaching our kids how to say file taxes or doing this and doing that. We do have other things that people want, like are interested in band, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like taking something that I don't know everything about critical race theory. From what I understand, it's a theory, this and that, and you do identify, this can be this and that could be that. Now I'm not, don't hit on me. I'm not exactly the most up to date on critical race theory, but
I won't hit on you. Don't worry.
But what I'm saying is just, now maybe the word theory in it is throwing me off. I don't know, but I know a little bit about it. But what I'm saying is when it comes to my kid, okay, I don't want my kid to hear theories of what these teachers are teaching the kids. I don't want to know what the teacher's theory or the take on something. I just want 1+1 is 2, right? Something that is the standardized to help the kid move forward. And that's just me. I don't know.
Okay. Amanda and then Chris.
Yeah, he just pushed once again a lot of disinformation out on, I'll call it misinformation out on critical race theory. But I don't think that if you don't know a subject, then don't use it as an example. I don't know. I just feel like there was a lot of misinformation pushed out right there, right after Wick already just explained that.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, again, we teach theories in schools like in standardized ways already anyway, all right? This isn't anything new, right? And like this, I don't like it's because of all this misinformation that's being pushed out that people have such pushback for it. It's like like when we're teaching kids how to think, right? And we're trying to get them to think critically, and we do this already with tons of other subjects. And why can't race be introduced into this? Why can't we teach kids to think critically about race? It should be the way like conservatives and like people on the right talk about how they're just done with this race talk and like just want this racism stuff to be over with. They're tired of it, but they don't put forth any solutions to help remedy that situation. And we have solutions, and we try to give those solutions to try to end this, right? We're trying to push society forward, trying to come up with things to help remedy this situation. We get tons of pushback for it. When something like this, it can be very helpful, it can be very engaging, and it could completely eliminate these racist ideas from younger generations to where we no longer have to talk about this stuff anymore. If we get through the hard work of it, we won't have to talk about this anymore. We won't have to keep going through this if we spend the time, do the work, and try to come out better on the other side for it.
I just want to reiterate, I guess, that there are we all can recognize there are potential problems with private schools. We can all recognize there are potential problems with standards and how things are taught, and that if you teach a subject wrong, it's going to lead to bad outcomes. I think we can all recognize that. But that is in no way does it make it okay for the government to do a lot of overreach. And I really want to push back against this again. The to not allow the option for if a school is making its standards and is meeting the standards, to not allow the option for someone of a religious background to put their child in a religious school, I think is tyrannical.
Yeah, go ahead.
So-
So SocDoneLeft, sure. Then Pyro.
Sure. So I think that what it means to put someone in a religious school is like somewhat undefined here. So religious school could literally just mean that they say that they're part of a religion or something. That's totally fine. I don't give a shit. But when you're talking about increasing levels of religiosity in the school, it becomes decreasingly acceptable. So I went to somewhere that had a prayer before every class that didn't teach sex education, at least not properly. We had mass like weekly or bi-weekly. We had priests talking to us on the regular. We had priests who were teachers. Our teacher taught evolution pretty well, but some of these schools don't have to, or at least not like at any appreciable standard. So if you're talking about standards which require like all of this teaching to fit like modern scientific standards, to fit like modern beliefs about what like increases people's sexual well-being, that's obviating a lot of the harm here. But that's certainly not the status quo. And so when you talk about government overreach, it just seems like really what you're saying is I'm fine going, 3 steps, but you're going 6 steps and I'm not okay with that. And the question I'm fundamentally asking is like, why should we be okay with parents deciding what religion their children have? We wouldn't, at least I don't want a society where parents have a lot of control over their children's ideology. I want children to be as autonomous as possible in that respect.
Okay.
I agree.
That's the round. That is the round. But that's
God damn, sucks.
that's an interesting topic though. Maybe we'll think about it. So, all right, to my audience, we are going to go into another voting round. Okay, so once again, oh my God, like I don't know how you're gonna. Is this the thumbs? Is that what got you first place last time? Is this,
we're gonna find out.
It's the Civil War beard, right? Like everyone loves a good Union general. Who's gonna say shit about Ulysses S. Grant and General Sherman? They won the war.
There you go. All right. Well, yes. So you're going to be voting once again as to which one of these individuals gets to go into the next round. So you'll be voting whoever was most interesting, the funniest, or most fascinating, or the beardiest, of course. Whatever is your criteria, you vote for that person to stay into the next round. Not who you want to go, who you want to stay, right? You got 5 minutes on the clock to do that, right? Don't take longer than 5 minutes or your vote does not count. So it's pretty simple. Vote for the person that you want to keep around, and do it now. Don't wait. All right, so link is in chat. Vote right now. Don't bother to vote later. Vote right now. Vote right this second. 5 minutes left on the clock. But I thought the religion topic was pretty interesting. I don't know. Do you guys want to carry that on to the next round? I'm thinking about
That's
it.
a big topic. I was like, it's a good topic. I just wasn't prepared to talk about it at the time.
Like, I actually like the topic a lot too.
Yeah.
Do you disagree with SocDoneLeft's position?
I don't but I understand where like it can be a little dangerous. Like, right? Like, I understand the sentiment and I like the practicality of it, and I think he's right. I don't know if Man, this is a tough one. I don't know if right now it would be good to strip that right away from parents.
Who disagrees
right?
with who disagrees with SDL's position? Just want to know that off that. If no one disagrees, then you disagree.
I mean, I disagree with the position.
Oh, do you? Okay, all right. Pyro doesn't disagree. Amanda, you do disagree?
I disagree with like the end, like the solution to it, right? Like I do see points where religion can be a problem, and like we're worried about the indoctrination of children. I just don't know at what level I want like a higher authority, because that's what we're talking about. Some higher authority coming in and like getting directly involved with like the decisions parents make.
Yeah. What about you, Amanda?
Base Pyro.
So okay. All right then.
That's what I do.
And tags. How do you feel?
Could you repeat it? Sorry, I didn't know that was directed towards me, so I was letting you guys chat.
I was directed towards everyone. Do you disagree with SDL, SocDoneLeft's opinion on religious schools or well, religion in general, honestly?
Sorry, I mean the indoctrination that the government would put on the school.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll just do it. And
I completely missed it. I went to
That's
get some
fine.
water, so I might have missed it.
No,
I
it's fine.
apologize.
No sweat. But all right, we'll give it a try, SDL, and we'll see how that goes next round. But of course, that's only if you survive, because if you don't, if the crowd does not want you, then we'll move on and do something else.
That would
Yeah,
be
I think-
tragic.
I think the issue here is one of where do we think this is going to go, and what does this open the door for? And it really, when you decide that the government can have a say in where a child, to that degree, I think the government should have some say. When I think SocDoneLeft, his 3 steps forward versus 6 steps forward is a fine analogy. 3 steps forward, we're good, but 6 steps forward and you're over the edge. You've stepped off the cliff. You've walked the plank. There's obviously a limit where we want to place, and I think we just draw the lines differently.
Yeah. Cool.
My only problem with is how far in it goes, right? Like if you were to propose any steps that don't hit at such a level, I might be fine with it, right? But I'd have to hear it, because so far the only thing we've been going on is we need to remove this, and that's the only thing I can think of is some higher authority, probably ordained by the state, getting directly involved with this, and then telling parents what they can and can't introduce your children to. I'm sure you of all people wouldn't want that. You're SocDoneLeft. Think about the last 105 years of shit the education system has pushed about the left. I don't think that's a good idea to let it go that far.
Sure. I mean, to be clear, the private school system is, if I was just an ideological motive, the private school system in the United States is 95% religious. I think maybe even 97. And it is overwhelmingly conservative. I actually, in my high school, they did a mock election. Trump came first, Cruz came second, Bernie came third with 15% of the vote. You're talking about disproportionately high income, highly religious people. They are not friends of the left by any means. But I guess the question I would pose to y'all is what fundamental right of religion would be taken away if we lived in a country where there were no private religious schools?
Well, I just gave you
other
a
countries.
good example. I live in a community of Mennonites, and part of their belief is they want their kids to be able to pray in schools and to have a prayer led by a teacher. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think
They
there's
can pray in
anything
schools, they just-
necessarily wrong.
They can
with
pray in schools.
with that kind of environment. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of what my point was too, is that you have charter schools, private schools, military school. You have a lot of different other options out there. And if we're talking about a standardized, it's kind of where us as, you have the left, you have the right. Some people agree with critical race theory, some people don't, right? And it's really who gets to decide what is a standard for America. And if you really want, this to be, I mean, that's what I mean. If you really want your kid to be in band, if it's an option, you go to that school. If they have a really good band school, you go to the high school. Because I know for me, I have a kid on the way. I'm thinking, okay, where's the best school for my kid? Where do I want my kid to have a good education? I know that this place, most of their band graduates, they end up going into the symphony, so I'm going to lead my kid.
That's it. That'll be it for now.
God damn it, tags.
Yeah. All right, so we'll pick this up in a second, but I hope you all voted. If you didn't vote, well, who cares? So gonna refresh, gonna see what we got here. All right, at the top, and not surprising, SocDoneLeft, number 1, sitting pretty. All right, them up here, right? Winter spot. Sorry, Wick, right? Only winners deserve to be
It's
there.
okay.
All right. He's closer to me, closer to God, right? Must mean he's number 1. Okay, so next is Beyond the Tags. Nice work. Nice work.
Oh, I really thought I was gone.
Oh, no.
I was like,
you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
I don't know this panel. I don't know.
No, you're doing a good job.
What the hell just happened
You're
there?
keeping it spicy.
And Oh boy. Pyro, I don't know what's going on, buddy. You're doing a good job. You're doing good work. You're doing good work. Not quite good enough. Oh man.
I just gotta learn how to schmutz your chat up a little bit better. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, well, I like you, Pyro. Right? You know what? You know what messed you up? I told you to keep your shirt on. That was my fault. I
Yeah, I mean,
sabotaged
like
you.
that's what I could think. Like that's the only other reason I can think people would vote for someone like who wants the government to get involved with your parenting. It's baffling to me. Like, holy shit.
And Amanda at the bottom this time. All right. So, SocDoneLeft and only SocDoneLeft will be in charge of voting. So Pyro and then Amanda. Pyro, 30 seconds on the clock. Why should SocDoneLeft keep you?
Oh, I'm not gonna fucking beg. You made a dog shit point, bro, and like I came at you with like the ferocity that needed. Like I'm the pyro tyrant for a reason. No, don't get the fucking government involved like with the decisions of parent making. That's just a dumb fucking idea in general. Like, why would you even suggest that? And I apparently am the only one with the balls enough on this panel to go hard enough on that point and keep focusing on that point while we were getting diverted with a critical race theory and whatnot, like the topic at the time. Like that point needed to be fought back against. And I think I did it. Whether you think it was right or not, someone actually took problem with that point, and it was me.
Okay, great. Next is Amanda, please.
Yeah, I was actually going to do the same thing, Pyro, because I can't stick around, but I just wanted to push back again on Beyond the Tags and just maybe remind you again, don't talk about something you know absolutely nothing about, because you just told a whole bunch of people a whole lot of misinformation and on critical race theory, along with a whole bunch of other points, basically saying that you're okay with private school so your kids don't have to learn this subject that you know nothing about, and that's just really dumb.
Okay, well.
Before I DM you a name, I just wanted to ask Amanda, did you say you had to go?
Okay, well then just then all right, just leave then.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
Sorry.
Well, hold on. For the sake of the show, let's continue with the charade, okay? I wanna see how this plays out.
All right.
Does it play out in old Pyro's favor?
Wait, do I still have to DM you the name?
No, just go, please. Yeah, let's move on.
Bye, Amanda. It was fun.
All right. Thanks so much. Now, let's move on to the next topic. Thanks. Thank you for the vote, SocDoneLeft. Really appreciate it. I'm making it official. All right. All right. So, so restate your position on religion and those schools and all that stuff. SocDoneLeft will make that the next topic.
Sure. So I believe that it is directly analogous to think about a political school, like say a Democrat school, a Republican school, like a fascist or whatever school, and religious school. That when you take a child and for hours a week, something between like, I don't know, even 1 hour, if it's just a mass, it could be like multiple hours, like 8 hours if you have, say, one religious class. I certainly did. You are exposing a child to a lot of indoctrination and a lot of propaganda. If you wouldn't accept it for like a Republican school or a Democrat school where kids go in and they are told that, hey, this policy is good, and you aren't told why, it's just given that there's some sort of ultimate power who tells you what is right and what is wrong, then you shouldn't accept it for religion, because that is precisely what children are being taught. I guess the argument that I'm raising is that I want children to have as much autonomy as possible in choosing their ideology, their religion, their beliefs in general, and religious school goes directly against that. I would prefer a society with no religious schools. Even if we maintain private schools, there shouldn't be any religious schools.
Okay, all right. So 25 minutes left on the clock, jump into it.
Yeah, like we can't extend this to anything else. And also, there's already politics in schools. Like depending on what state you're in, like down to what town you're in, like your entire like teaching staff could be Republican, right? And they're teaching you about certain issues that are going on, they're being voted on, and they're influencing you on what ways you should think about those issues and like how your parents should vote. Like we're already doing that. And also like say if we like a parent wanted to raise their kids to be vegans, right? Should they not be allowed to do that? Like there's so many things that like we have the freedom to do in this country that the parents should be able to like teach kids or like send like if they wanted to send their kids to like say a vegan school, right? Where they know that the school that they're sending them to is like teaching them about veganism and also feeding them like food that they agree with. Then like should that not exist? Should that not be allowed? Like and also again, freedom of religion. I don't think we should strip the rights of parents to be able to teach their kids this and be able to send them to places to learn more about these things. What we shouldn't do is like take the rights away from kids to be able to say no, right? If they don't want this anymore, or if they don't want to continue with this, the children should have a right to that, to a certain degree. But I don't think parents should be stripped of their rights to introduce that to their kids. I don't think that's right at all.
Well, and here's the thing: when you open the door to the government being able to pick the winners, in this case, the winning ideology, you get into a lot of really dangerous territory. The hypotheticals you bring up, SocDoneLeft, is what would we think if we had an all Republican school or an all Democrat school? Chris very wisely and basedly points out that we already do. The region you live in and the school system you live in, and the teachers are going to have political opinions. And in a lot of places, not all places, but in a lot of places, you won't find a Republican, you won't find a Democrat, and they are going to get a very narrow ideological view. The problem comes in when you're asking the government to say this particular ideology is off limits. Now, when we talk about standards, again, I understand the concerns that you have, but there are other ways to fix it. There are other ways to address the problem that do not get as dangerous. And again, putting forth this idea that we should strip the ability to send a child to a religious school or any school, what if someone wants to take their child out of a Democratic region and put it in a Republican region? Should we not allow that? It's just a very bad take, man.
So, like, along with the two really good points that have already been made, another one that like no one has actually touched on is like a lot of religious people get their morals from their religion. So, like, in attacking this, like Chris Cosmo said, you're attacking that freedom of religion because, like, you're essentially telling these religious parents, like, hey, we're going to limit on how you can teach your kids your moral systems through these religions. Now, I may not necessarily agree with all of the religions and what they have to teach, right? But I don't think because I disagree with their ideology that I want the government to be able to come in and tell them that, right? Because, like, with the problems with the government already, with the systemic issues, I have a feeling we know what type of religions would be more or less targeted, right? I don't think we'd see an attack on Catholic schools. I think we'd see a lot more attacks on like private Muslim institutions, right? Like I think in the situation you're prescribing, we giving the government that power, like I don't think it turn out as well as you think it will. And like I think that's my main problem with it. It seems like a good idea when you say it on paper, but like when you start to think about it internally, it kind of falls apart. Especially when you talk about like America and the rights we've given our citizens. We've said we've given our citizens for like the past 200 years or so, right? Like,
I'm gonna feed off Pyro. I know that you've been kind of at the bottom tonight. So me and you, we agree. So I'll be at the bottom with you, man. I back that. This is America. We are founded on so many cultures. And to say we have an immigrant family that comes to America that doesn't really know, like, okay, what's this, what's that, but they know that they could base off, okay, this is a Vietnamese school, right? There's a Vietnamese school that they could teach my kid what they need to know in Vietnamese if they need to, or religion. Need to talk about sex education, having to opt out of sex ed or do this or do that, and it gives them the ability to. I mean, what about Amish people? Are we going to start forcing them to go to public schools? No, I mean, they have their way of life. We should allow to people still be who they are, but also it's up to the parents to see, do I want my kid going to the school because, whatever reason, or do I want my kid to go to where my whole family generation has been based off Catholic or, a Vietnamese school or, because then you start hitting into the thing is how do you go to a school, right, that is based that doesn't allow, say, because you start introducing religion when I don't think you should be introducing religion into public schools. I think it should just be like
Yeah.
I said, 1+1. There should be a standard, but allowing that person to be able to go into, I guess you could say, their comfort zone, their safe place, or whatever it is, wherever they identify and will actually excel at versus being held back by not being able to express or familiarize themselves with.
We've tried to use the school system to change the culture before, and it's been terrible. It's been terrible.
So let's go with SocDoneLeft if you have anything else to add, and then go to Chris.
Sure. So, I mean, there are 6 things that y'all have brought up. So, the first is that right now, there's already biases in schools. That in the status quo, there's like Republican and Democrat schools. Yeah, that sucks. The goal is not to eliminate it totally, because that's an impossible goal. The goal is to minimize it where we can. There's always going to exist areas that are more dominated by one person and not by another person. But private religious schools don't have to exist. They're not like some fact of nature that we have to deal with. We can choose to eliminate them and choose to reduce propaganda. So the mere fact that the problems exist in the status quo doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to make the world better. The second argument is about freedom of religion, that somehow the parent has a right to indoctrinate their child. I don't believe this. Like, I don't think that the parent has a right to send their child to a school that is going to teach them things that are like either not based in fact or lies, just for hours and hours and hours a day of the week of the year. Like, I think that there is no right of the parent to do that. Children are not property. There's been a long legal movement towards treating children as increasingly autonomous. I stand behind that movement. Like, it's, you know, in particular in the United States, it began with the Warren Court, that children were literally legally made unproperty of their parents. I think that that's like the correct direction. Parents shouldn't be able to control your ideology, whether it be religion or morality or veganism. All these are bad. Yeah. Then there's a concern about government overreach. I think this is, you know, understandable, but right now, like, if this were a concern, it should be a concern for public schools, which are 9/10 of school. And I don't know how else to put this, but there's going to be more propaganda in a private religious school for teaching a very specific set of doctrines than there is going to be in a standard government school in the United States as it currently exists, because of the Constitution and the requirements that you can't teach certain things, like certain sects of religions. You can't teach certain political opinions. Yeah, it'll seep in no matter what, but that doesn't mean that like we have to just accept it as bad as it is right now. Again, the mere fact that there's problems now doesn't mean we shouldn't try to improve the world. And more importantly, I try to note that we live in a democracy. If you think there's overreach, you can vote against it. I would never advocate that we like ban private religious schools in like to the American public because they overwhelmingly support it. I'm saying that if we could build this society, we should. It's a moral question. I don't know. And on the final thing that I thought was interesting is this argument that there's going to be more attacks on non-Christian schools. Maybe, but right now, I think in Maryland, there were 2 Islamic and 2 Jewish schools and 2 secular schools. Literally, the rest of them were Christian, and the vast majority of those were Catholic. So, like, if we're doing a blanket ban on religious schools, it's actually overwhelmingly going to hurt the Christian majority in the United States, not religious minorities.
Yeah, let's go to tags, then Pyro, and then Chris.
So I'm going to bring a little different viewpoint then, because, you know, yeah, you have the immigration, you know, I brought the immigration. I mean, you also have, you know, the deaf schools. You have people who, you know, school of hearing, you know, and stuff like that. Now, what about this? Around 9/11, we had, you know, a lot of attacks on the Muslims. Do you think that we should send the kids who could be attacked because they're Muslim into the public schools, or allow their own parents be like, hey, we can go down to this place and actually enroll our kid into a school that could be protected so they do not get attacked? Because I know, you know, it's high school. Kids are dumb. They beat up kids. They do this, they do that. But also, what if you have a teacher who's now picking on this particular kid because he's Islamic or he's Jewish or whatever the case may be, because, you know, there is another attack, or, you know, I mean, with everything going on now, you know, we should allow kids and the parents, well, the parents make the decision for the kid as to what they think is in their best interest, whether that's protecting them, whether that's, you know, putting some more money into their education, or even religion. That is up to the parent to decide what's the best interest, and it shouldn't be the government's decision for that. But also, we're also narrowing it down from private to public. We have charter schools, military school, you know, we have, you know, academies. We have a lot of different options too, and that's what makes America so amazing, is that if you don't like it here, go over there. If you don't like it there, go here. You get to figure out what you want. You know, you want burgers one night, go get tacos the next, right? You know, and that's the thing. You can actually end up using this as a system to be able to protect people, right? I mean, that we have black colleges, you know, that are historically black colleges, right? And they're around. So when you start standardizing, well, we shouldn't add religion, we shouldn't add this, then you're going to be cutting off the argument. So we should just get rid of all this other stuff too. But
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the correct solution to like people might be beat up for their race or religion is to let those people shuttle themselves off and like hide it from the rest of society. The goal should be to fix the rest of society and make it less bigoted. The mainstream sociology, called the contact theory, suggests that the more contact you have with people of different groups, the more accommodating you become towards them. So this is why gay acceptance rose so quickly from like 20 to 70%, because everyone knows a gay. It's the same thing that's happening for trans people, and it's a big part of why like negative beliefs about race have also enormously declined. People not only know people of other races, but they know interracial couples. They're like marrying and fucking people of other races. It's enormously beneficial. The same is true of high school.
That's right. Me having sex with white women is enormously beneficial. You heard it here first, all right? Like, that's science. That's
Thank you,
just science.
PrimeCayes.
All right.
Mhm.
Let's go to Pyro, and then Chris.
You could skip over
Okay.
me for a second. I'm just like taking a lot of that nonsense in.
Chris, and then Wick.
Yeah, I like if I like SocDoneLeft, I agree with you so much, but that's me looking through an atheist like leftist lens, right? I have this
Mhm.
view on religion that causes me to agree with you. Like I like, but like if we take other like a religious person's opinion to account, like they don't think of this the same way that like we do, right? They don't think of like
Sure.
this as being the, like dangerous indoctrination. They don't like, and because of that, like would be like it'd be kind of like kind of a dickish move to like to just like to suggest that we have like we know what's right and your religion is a lie, right? So you shouldn't be able to teach like you shouldn't be able to send your kid to a school for that, right?
So
That's kind of like
Sorry.
I was gonna say, like earlier, you said like this was more of a moral question about where we want our society to be, and for me, that's a very easy question. I don't like the idea of our government being able to tell you, like, when it comes to religion specifically, what and like what's not allowed, what you can and can't teach your kid. Because again, I think you're ignoring the point that like a lot of people derive their morals from religion. Whether I agree with it as a deist or Cosmo agrees with it as an atheist, like we can't ignore that fact when we're talking about religion specifically. And like, you know, the America point specifically in America, we have shit that like actually protects that. I'm not sure how much private schools fall into that, but like if we're talking morally, I don't think that's something that should be crossed. I don't think that like the government should have that ability.
Now, I
Well,
think you're exactly right though when you talk about contact theory and things like that. That the more exposure you have to different ideas, the more exposure you have to different types of people, the more exposure you have to different ways of life, the more accepting and tolerant you are. I think that's true. Yes, but we don't have to increase this. We don't have to eliminate religious private schools. We don't have to take it so far. We have other solutions to this. And ones that I would advocate for, and I think we could both agree on and work together for. But two issues, we come into the pragmatism of getting this done. It's just, we talked about AI earlier. I think this is farther away than that. As far away as AI self-driving cars are, I think this is far, far further away than that when it comes to the pragmatism of eliminating religious institutions.
we have to take his argument like because he didn't say eliminating the religious schools, right? He just said having like letting parents send their children to these religious schools at an early age. Now I agree with him at that point. Like I don't want like I don't like that happens. I think that should be relegated to when they get 18 and like they want to go to like a religious college per se. They have
Wait,
more
so you
autonomy. Uh, like I'm not saying like I'm just saying that's me personally. I'm not saying that we should implement this as like the country. Well, I'm just like explaining like why he like so like if we when the children have more autonomy and like they can have more room to like judge this for themselves and make these decisions for themselves, and yes, there's that religious institution, but that's not the society we live in, and right, and because our country is based on freedom of religion, like it's one of the pillars, like it's super it's super dangerous, and like it's super like if we're just showing no empathy for these people who practice these religions, right? And
and
well,
yeah,
I was
I
going to
don't
speak
I
to that
don't
for a moment.
disagree. I just don't. I don't disagree. I think personally, on a personal level, if I had children and I was choosing what to school to send them, I wouldn't be comfortable sending them to a religious school.
yeah
But we can't base. I'm not. We can't base every decision on how I feel.
yeah
Why shouldn't we? You might be stream queen, honestly. Sock down left within tags.
Well, so I was going to reach. So I guess the question I would pose is like, you were talking about having empathy for the religious, right? And you were saying that religious people don't think that it's indoctrination. They think it's like a right of theirs to send their children to religious schools. The question I would ask is like, where do you decide where the line between like empathy and unacceptable is drawn? So, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in blood transfusions. They recently updated their doctrine, but let's just say they don't believe in blood transfusions, period. Is that acceptable? Should Jehovah's Witness kids not be allowed to get blood transfusions because their parents say otherwise?
Well, when it comes to life or death situations, no. I think
Well, what if it's just like, it's not
But
life or
it's-
death, it's just like comfort or something?
Well, if
A
it is,
comfortable blood transfusion,
Yeah, I
like
don't-
is that a thing?
I can't.
Sure.
I
So
can't
let's
think
do
of a
another one. Let's do
situation-
Christian Science, right? So like some Christian scientists don't believe that you should do any modern medicine. You should only be healed by the grace of God. And so they refuse to do stuff like putting on, what are they called? The big white things you put on like arms when you break them.
Cast?
Whatever they're-
Cast?
Casts. They don't believe in casts. There's this famous story of this kid in Idaho whose dad would literally saw it off him when they got a broken leg. So like, is that acceptable? Where do
Well,
we draw
no,
the line?
again, we're talking about
Sorry.
education versus medical issues. I think there's a difference here. We can't correlate these two things.
Sure.
I
So then let's talk
also
about
think we
education.
ha-
Why not let them teach creationism?
As long as they can pass the standards.
Well,
that we
I
set
think
up.
right now, like the way we have these private schools set up, like they can teach creationism, but like they while it is like a horribly mismanaged, they do have to teach some of like what the overall state says the curriculum is, right? Like they can't just be like, okay, we're a private school, fuck everything you know about the Civil War, states' rights, Jesus said so, blah 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 blah. I don't think they can do that. Like they do have to teach within some type of curriculum, and in that curriculum,
sure.
we can hold on. In that curriculum, we can make sure that when it comes to like these this medical science you're talking about, right? Like people are properly educated on like sex ed and shit, like things that don't have the possibility to like adversely harm your body through like just misinformation, right? Like, oh, because like that is a problem. Like you're sick, but you believe in this voodoo magic, whatever you want to call it, right? And you end up killing yourself or your child because like you wanted to heal yourself with some rocks and shit. That shouldn't be an option, and I think this is one of the reasons we should have this regulation where like, yeah, they can we do have a curriculum that they need to teach, and medical should be a part of it.
Sure. So what you're suggesting is that the standard is we should only teach facts. We shouldn't be able to teach falsehoods about history or about science. And so I'm saying, why would we allow people to teach that, hey, the whole universe was created by God?
They can't teach that,
Because
but they
the-
must. They
so,
must
like-
teach what the state mandates. They must teach evolution. If they want to throw in,
But
well,
why would we
there's a
want to let them
creation or
teach something
intelligence
additionally?
design.
So the
Because
problem
when you
is,
allow the government to decide what the facts are, you get into really dangerous territory, and I'm not comfortable with it.
Well,
Even
my
like,
whole
as much as I'm like I worship science, even I don't know the origin of like the universe, right? So I can't even put it down to whether or not it's a god, right? I can only go by like the theories that have been talked about and like working this thing out, and I have my ideas of what that is, right? So I agree that like these theories should both like if you want to teach both these theories, do that, and like the child, go down the
But
path that
this,
they
this,
seem.
this seems to assume that children are like fully rational agents, that they'll like sit down and they'll think through everything that you gave them and just come to a perfectly rational conclusion. We know this is bullshit. There's a reason there are restrictions on advertisements to children. They're fundamentally irrational. They aren't able to fully weigh all of the options, and they're going to live in a family, if they're going to a private religious school, that is generally much more religious and inclined to like drive it into their head what is true.
We have a panel. We have this full panel just like completely eradicates that like idea, because like I'm pretty sure all of us have like been like probably lived in families where like there's certain ideas like that shouldn't be propagated, and we all went against that, right?
I
So,
literally
like,
literally spent 2 summers like doing the Jehovah's Witness, knocking on doors and handing out pamphlets and shit. Like, yeah, there was a heavy amount of indoctrination, but at a certain age, like, as I went to college, as I like furthered my education, I had the opportunities to like look at certain shit and like come to the conclusion that myself that like it may not be exactly what these people are preaching. I've reached my own conclusions. Cosmo's reached his own conclusions, but we're not trying to supplant our mind processes on the entire society. Like what you're doing right now is you're saying like we want to teach these facts and whatnot. Well, unfortunately, when we talk about religion like this, these religious people think that what they're teaching is fact, right? And like we can talk about the ideology it breeds into that, but like a lot of that has to do with like the curriculum involved. And again, these schools don't just throw away the state's curriculum; they have to teach it alongside it. Now, the solution you're
Well,
probably
not right now,
looking
but like hypothetically, sure.
no, like, is it not right now? Do they not have to teach any of the state's curriculum? Do they have to are they allowed to throw it out, or is it something where like the rules are just mismanaged horribly, and we should probably make sure that these schools are doing what they're supposed to do?
Education is a state's right now, so the answer is gonna vary about 52 odd fold. So,
but you can see, but in that statement, you can see why putting this in the hands of the government and to be able to tell what can and cannot be taught has some problems.
You want to give it to the
state.
Tags, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean,
it's right now a states' right issue. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
There's 50 different answers.
Tags.
If we're talking about letting the government, standardize and letting the government choose, well, then it's going to be Christianity. I mean, look at "In God We Trust" is on our money. We have this and that. But also, when you start looking at,
public schools aren't teaching Christianity right now. That's wrong.
I'm not saying they are teaching it. I'm not saying they're teaching it. But if you're talking about the government control over what it would teach, if you give them just the full control over that, I mean, America's based on Christianity, but we have so many cultures.
They already do have full control over public schools.
I was talking about the whole religious aspect of it. That's why we don't.
If you ban private schools and
also
public schools, they right now aren't teaching Christianity in public schools, at least not officially.
I know. But what I'm saying is, when you get so many different cultures, and you have to try to, okay, we're going to do this for this and this and that. I mean, some people don't eat meat religiously. Some people do this and some people do that. They don't believe in this. They believe in evolution. They believe in, I mean, what about Scientology? Are we going to, you have to kind of keep in mind that there's so much that who are, any of us on this panel going to say that, well, I don't want your kid to learn this or learn that. That should be up to the parent.
It's not your
if
kid.
If you don't want your kid to
you
learn
shouldn't get to decide what the kid believes to that
why
extent.
I'm responsible. If that kid gets hurt, I can get charged.
You can be responsible without having
for that
control.
children's well-being. And if I believe my children's well-being is in a Christian school and I'm paying for it, why do you get to control that?
I think the big hang up here.
Let Tags finish the point.
But the thing is that when you talk about you have all these things, is that you should allow people, if you don't like your school being ran by a Republican, then leave states. I mean, that's just how we function as humans. We overflow our ideology into the public. You have that Republican at the gas station, and they might say something off-putting about, oh, well, why can't we, why are we banning menthols? That's going to be overspill from just society. I mean, we focus so much now on politics. When I was in high school, I couldn't even tell you who was president. I had no idea. I was just playing Pokemon and having fun, and but now it's overspilled to that. And I don't believe our kids should be introduced into all of this hate going on. They need to focus on the standards, 1 + 1. This is the sun, don't touch it. But, what comes after the sun, stuff like that should be standardized. Then you, as a parent, if you want your kid to go home and learn the piano for 2 hours, then do it. That is your choice as a parent. Now, are you correct? That's not your decision. That's the parent's decision. And so, oh, wow, my kid's a complete failure. Where did I go wrong? That's up to them. And then hopefully they can correct that kid's future. But that's not up to you to tell another parent what they're doing wrong.
STL can respond.
I mean, I just don't think that children are the property of their parents. So I don't think that you should have the ability to control your child's religion or what they do with the vast majority of their life. Children have substantially or deserve substantially more autonomy than is given them right now. This is something that I don't know. This is a whole topic in modern ethics.
Hold on, Wick. Because the problem is we keep relying back to what about the children argument? And I don't like that. Because when we're talking about this issue specifically, you keep dodging the fact that there are people who take their religion as deep as they take the sky is blue, right? And unfortunately, religion isn't something as provable as the Civil War wasn't about state right. It's not one of those empirical facts that we can prove. So this is something that I feel like the government should step out of and leave to the parents to decide, whether or not they want to teach these children, since there's no way that we can actually get an answer on this. then we can look at the curriculum to certain shit that we can, like the hard sciences, math, the shit like that, medical shit, and we can actually tell these type of schools, hey, you need to teach this properly, right? By whatever standards we want to come up with, you need to teach this. And I think the problem we're seeing now is that our government isn't actually maintaining that standards. They're letting a lot of schools flub because like there is a problem, where people come out misinformed on a lot of things. I'm not going to deny that.
That's the round. But you guys seem really fired up. We could literally continue on to the next round. And you guys seem like all want to jump on this one, so why not?
It's a dumb fucking point.
Okay. But yeah, so anyway, to my audience, we are going into the next elimination round, right? So you're going to be voting. Put a link both in the chat. You're going to vote on which one of these individuals, including SocDoneLeft, who's currently peeing, which one of these individuals to keep right into the next round. The next round will be our final round. Okay, so you're going to vote for who to keep into the next round. Who is the most interesting, most fun, the most build a piss. I don't know. I was trying to think of something clever, but all right. All right, that was bad. All right. Yes, you'll be voting for who to stay, not who's going to leave. Okay. Which one is one of these individuals who want to keep around, not who you want to go? All right, simple as that. So I'm going to put the link in chat. You'll have 5 minutes. I mean 5 minutes, not 6 minutes. You'll have 5 minutes to vote. So please hurry up and do that. All right, here we go. All right. Voting. Link is in chat. You have 5 minutes left on the clock. Now is the time to vote. Vote right this second. Don't wait. Vote right this second. Jump on into it. All right. Oops, that's a wrong link, but yeah. So that's been. I think. Well, hold on. You just save it all for like the round.
I'll get some water. I'll be right back.
Sure. But this is. I don't expect you guys to be so heavily disagree on this particular topic, or at least on SocDoneLeft's opinion of it.
Well, I think he's mischaracterizing just how much
religion matters.
Control. No, the control level here, because I was raised in a religious household. I'm not religious anymore. Obviously, I was able to change. I always change my mind, even though I was quote unquote indoctrinated. I mean, it's just.
I have a question for
SocDoneLeft. Hold on. No, again, save it. SocDoneLeft. Did you hear the piss comment? I didn't realize you had wireless.
Yeah, I'm so full of piss. So empty.
Okay.
Just listening to Prime talk about you pissing.
Oh God. Love listening to people talk about me pissing.
Okay. All right. Hey, I'm going to provide.
Listen, just vote Pyro and we can move on.
The link is in chat. You're voting for. Oh God. The link is in chat. Vote right this second. Jump on in. We have less than 3.5 minutes left on the clock. Vote right this second. Vote right now. Okay. And I like how there is campaigns within the chat as to who to vote for. I love that. But yeah, vote whoever you want, and advertise who you're voting for. Let the world know that this is your guy, because we don't have any women left on this panel. But yeah, vote right this second. We're loving it. You can put the link for your channels too, and if they want to vote as well, that's fine. But yeah, vote right now. Vote right this second. Chris, they got a lot of people on your side apparently.
I hope it works out. I love you all. Thank you for the votes. I guess those cows I sacrificed in Minecraft worked out.
That's how it works.
I'm not gonna lie, Chris did very well. I agree with him.
Chris has had some pretty good points. Like,
look, I'm doing my best here. I'm trying to level up.
But I want you to look the difference between our beards and then ask yourself, do you really want someone without
listen,
this
all
majestic of a beard?
All I'm gonna say is, like, I love Chris, but like at this last topic, who did he agree with the most here? He's been like, yo, Pyro's right on this. I've been right on this. Like,
yeah, like even though I agree with SocDoneLeft, like if you ask me about like the Catholic Church in general, like I think they should be labeled a cult. And
fuck the Catholic Church. I'll say it. I will fucking say it. The only good thing they got going for them is like the fashion sense. I will admit it's nifty, but the rest of that shit is fucking weird.
Yeah, like I'll get more into it, but yeah, I agree with you, right? It's like this, like Wick said at a point, like you're just some steps too far that we're going and we're walking off a cliff. Like, please keep me in this
As Wick
in this
said,
chat, people.
indeed,
Please
as
keep
Wick
me
said.
Actually, so let's do. So, how many hours of indoctrination a week are you okay with children
Oh
having?
boy.
we'll go into it.
I
I'll-
disagree with your premise here. I don't
Yeah.
think it's indoctrination.
So hold
Yeah,
on.
like that's a
Hold
bad
think
premise.
Hold on. We'll get to it.
Does-
God, I'm giving 50 more minutes. Don't worry.
50 more minutes for voting. 50 minutes every.
No. I'll give you 15 more minutes. That'll be how long the final round lasts. And everyone, vote right now as to who gets to take part in that final round, right? Which one of these individuals do you want to stay? If you have not done so, we have less than a minute left. Do it right this second. Don't wait. If your favorite person gets voted off, that's your fault, not my fault. So vote right now.
You got to vote for Pyro. That's what he's saying, folks. Vote Pyro.
Yeah.
When are we gonna have the argument about is a hot dog a sandwich? I mean, that right there, we pull out the boxing gloves.
I don't think Twitch is ready for that level of intense
No.
discourse, right? Like that's almost up there with like pineapples on pizza.
Well,
Oh,
certainly
yeah,
not Twitch
I'm
chat.
sorry. Yeah.
There's
Oh, yeah.
obviously
Well,
a right answer.
that's
to that.
TOS. That's TOS, I think.
Well, there's a walk-on panel, hopefully.
Go ahead, vote.
That's when we get down and dirty with the debates here.
Late at nights.
Yeah.
When the Twitch mods are not around anymore, right? That's when we do it. And I can't.
They might show up.
Oh.
I would show up. I'd be like, wait, we're talking about what
For
now?
real,
All right.
honestly, the best times are the after panel. The after the open panel, when the stream's off,
Huh?
no one can hear what you have to think and what you have to say except for the ones in the room. That's when we get to the real mask off stuff.
Okay.
Discussions
Like
at
what color
night.
is the mirror? What color is the mirror?
I remember a couple weeks ago we spent like the entire 4 hours after the after panel like heavily arguing about like the existence of aliens and whether or not like it's technologically possible for them to come here and like hover around us, and it was amazing.
Oh.
Conclusion: yes.
Okay. Well.
Yes.
So, the voting is clear. The voting is very clear, right? SocDoneLeft stays at number 1. Okay. And Beyond the Tags, it stays as number 2. You are loved here, okay? And it's been proven that you don't have to be a progressive to win, right? It's a possibility. But yeah, you have a shot, okay? And at the bottom, oh boy, guys, you're doing great though. You're doing great. So take heart in this. All right. We got Pyro, second to last, and your boy Wick, absolutely last. Wick, look. One time though, you were number 1, okay? So it's not
For
a
a brief shining moment. I held all my cards. I held all the cards. A brief shining moment.
Okay, all right. And I love Wick because he always has a good like sense of humor about these things. All right. Not everyone does, but Wick keeps coming back. So that's why I'm like, guys, you gotta vote for this. He's like always participate. All right, whatever. But and then of course my man Pyro always doing a great job. So. All right, so you two will beg and plead. The SocDoneLeft. Why should you step down?
So this is very simple, SocDoneLeft. Again, you are having some dog shit takes, and you're probably gonna vote. You're probably gonna vote based because you don't want the heat of the Pyro. But think about it like this: beyond the tags, right? And that's the reason he's second, because he's the only one that brought up shit we weren't talking about. Chris Cosmo and Wick spent most of this round steel manning my argument because we all know you're fucking wrong. You're wrong as shit, bro. Like, and that's not even an argument. Like, the only reason you're up there right now is you're relying on like it's about the children, and you're also a prominent streamer, which I can't say shit about, man. I'm working my way up there, but I swear to fucking God, I will crawl my way up to the top of this fucking Royale inch by inch, because like I'm not gonna let this that point stand. Like, that can't happen. Nah, like, don't get the government involved in how you teach your children shit. Next thing you know, they're going to be talking about you can't tell them about communism. They're going to deem that a religion. Watch.
Wick.
Okay, well, I'm just going to have to say that you make good points, SocDoneLeft. I just think you take it too far. You take it to the extreme. People accuse me of being a centrist all the time. I think that's ridiculous. I'm not a centrist. I'm farther on the left. But we have to realize that not only, keep me in if you want someone from a more center position, not a centrist position, but a more center position to riff off of. What do you want here? Do you
An
want
easy
a
target.
lefty circle jerk, or do you want someone with a magnificent beard to be here to make some solid points?
So
I'll leave it up to you. I leave you choice in your hands.
that's absolutely right. When people see SocDoneLeft and his boyish smile, right, they think this guy's a radical. He's extreme, right? Like, get him out of here, right? Danger to the kids.
Listen, what do you want, SocDoneLeft? An easy target or someone to actually talk about your ideas, whether I think they're dog shit or not, man? Like, I'm not going to offer you an easy target about like, well, we need to take both sides.
All right. SocDoneLeft.
So as usual, I have let my chat vote, and that's the person who got kicked. I'm sorry.
Oh, damn.
All right, Vic. Apparently, SocDoneLeft.
I'm sorry. It was by one vote.
He does not appreciate being called an extremist. Okay, all right. You're practically calling him a terrorist. All right, here on live on air. All right, so this is your penance. But wait, seriously, you did an amazing job. I really do appreciate you coming through. As always, I have a good time with you around. So,
the feeling's mutual. You guys can see tune into my streams if you like, twitch.tv/Death of Certainty. And we have amazing discussions with beautiful people such as Ugly Pie. Pyro Tyrant has been on my channel. And Amanda Smash has been on my channel. Others have been on my channel. So please come by, visit me, give me a follow. I think I reached 100 followers recently.
Nice.
So yay. But yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. It's been fun.
Wick is on his way up to conquer the world, right? You need to be involved in that. Go hit up his channel. Link is in chat. How are you going, buddy? All right. So, the final four. All right. Only winners allowed here. All right. Got rid of that other guy. All right.
Listen, Lincoln had to replace General McClellan. It wasn't because he was a bad guy. He just wasn't effective.
All right, we're gonna continue on with the topic, and we'll put 15 minutes left on the clock. You got something to say to SocDoneLeft? Do it now. Jump on in.
Dude, why are you steel manning this bad position? But like, I'll let Cosmo go first, because like, holy fuck, man.
Look, would you be more comfortable if like, because this is my position, right? These dangerous, when it comes to dangerous ideas and the way we indoctrinate kids, that should be regulated, right? So if let's say we're like one of these religious schools is doing some sketchy stuff, or like the way they're doing their teachings is pretty like weird, right? We can look at that and say like, all right, you shouldn't be doing this. Like I said, like before, I think the Catholic Church shouldn't even be an institution anymore to begin with. So if like in my regulations, their schools wouldn't even exist to begin with. Either way, I think they're a cult. But I think we could get it to where like there is regulations in place to where if you're sending your kid to these schools, you're not being indoctrinated like 8 hours a day. You're not being taught some reprehensible things, right? We're gonna look at these things like make sure like LGBTQ kids aren't being like discriminated or harmed or abused in these situations in these schools, and we're gonna make sure like harmful ideologies are not there. So like, would you be more comfortable with that? With like kids being able to go to these schools if those extremes when it comes to the way they teach religion in these schools aren't there anymore?
Yeah, I'm more comfortable with it. The question I'm trying to get at is what is lost when you go the step further and you just eliminate religious schools? If parents still have the right, they still have the right to take their kids to like religious camps, to take them to church, whatever. What is lost by taking it out of the school?
The freedom of religion. I mean,
yo, you're taking that again, like you're ignoring the
freedom of religion.
No, SocDoneLeft, because like you keep ignoring this fact, and I will restate it as many fucking times as necessary. When we're talking about freedom of religion, right, we have to recognize that a lot of people, a lot of fundamentalists, a lot of people I don't necessarily agree with, view their religion and some of their tenets that we allow to be taught as like true as rain. So like to say that like we don't want to allow that in school, you're basically infringing on that freedom to teach their kids their moral system, and they will see it as that, like whether I agree it or not.
Well, I'm gonna take
Go ahead.
I'm gonna take it a little step further, right? I mean, look at imports and exports, right? If you like a certain type of bread, you got to choose that certain type of bread. If you don't, then you don't. And this is kind of just allows people to be able to have the freedom of what they feel is good for their kids or even for themselves. I mean, you're talking about some people who say they come from India, right? They come from India at 13 years old and they had this a certain type of way of learning their culture. They're, where that it's not even just about 1+1 at this point too, because you're also talking about, a school that only has Christmas break, where you have the India, they have the Festival of Lights, and they have other things that they want to be implemented into their into their life. I mean, you talk about pretty much changing someone's whole identity, someone's whole way of upbringing, just because you don't want someone to learn that. And that's what I'm saying. This I mean, I get to choose if I buy made in America products or not. I get to choose if I go with Samsung or LG. So why should we limit those choices to schools and a religion? Because people might get offended that these kids go to Catholic school or Jewish school or whatever the case may be, but yet we can make we have the freedom for choosing our TVs. And that's what I mean. Like kids have, and I kind of get what you're saying though. Kids, they shouldn't be forced by their parents to do exactly what the parents say. I get that. But at some point, kids don't know what they want. They need to have a direction. They have a lead. They need to have that direction into the path that the parents feel is best for them. If you feel like, oh, hey, these parents are straight up indoctrinating their kids, then you have every right to, voice it to, if you see a private school and they're marching around like Germany back in the day, and then voice that to your local government. Say, hey, listen, I don't think this is healthy, and then do an investigation. Look into it. And that's how you would protect these kids from being indoctrinated by the wrong things. When it should be standardized. Because all this stuff will be standardized. Not like it's going to be 1+1. A kid's going to be like, I went to Catholic school. I don't believe in 1+1. Right? It's still standardized. There's still a certain form of education these kids have to learn. But that's just my point. So.
Sure. So, I mean, the 2 points really raised here are one, that religious people think it's their right. But we've already gone over the fact that just because they think it's their right doesn't mean that it is, or that we as a society should treat it as such. We
Are we
teach
talking
kids
about
factual.
morally or legally? Because if we're talking about legally, yeah, they kind of have the right to teach their kids there's moral systems, as long as like it doesn't.
I mean, legally, no, it's not in the Constitution. The state can like literally choose to destroy your religion if the Supreme Court's willing to go along with it. It's not a constitutional right. But I mean, aside from that, that's
yeah,
not a good outcome.
that's with everything, right? Like if the Supreme Court goes with it, they can overturn the Constitution. But like when we keep pointing to the
Sure.
right of religion, yeah, that's something that traditionally for like the last entirety of our country, we've acknowledged that like you have the right to religion, and including in that, like if we're talking legally, you have the right to teach your religion to your children. If we're talking morally, that's a different story.
Sure. The argument here, more importantly, is that the law shouldn't determine morality. Something can be illegal and moral, or moral and legal. Slavery was legal, and many things have been illegal.
So just to be clear, we're talking about moral again.
Well, yeah, we've always been talking about moral. Like the argument that I don't know, it's like constitutional or it's in the law, it just doesn't matter. That's just an appeal to the status quo. So I guess the point that I would try and raise is that the moral argument here is that probably we don't want parents to have the right to control their children's ideology or their morality or any of this, at least to the degree that they're teaching the kid on a daily basis that XYZ is true, even if there's no evidence for that belief.
Let's go to tags and then Chris.
I mean, and real quick, I'm just going to say this. All right. How are you going to stop those people from, like I said, having their kid come home and play 2 hours of piano? I mean, how are you going to stop that? No. See, this is the thing. You don't get to choose if you stop that or not. See, we have function in America of religion, culture. LGBTQ. Sexual preferences. We have a lot of things going on, and just to say, well, it's not in the best interest of the public just to get rid of all of it, because you're just not going to. I mean, you're not going to just because of someone says we shouldn't allow that, mean it just goes away. I think we're mixing the fact that we're going to have standards, right? But also
we're not
the fact
talking
that,
about the government coming in and stopping your kid from reading the Bible. We're talking about them going to a school for 5 days a week for years.
But if you go to a standard school, we should already assume that, yeah, we shouldn't be having 1+1 equals, well, Jewish religion's the best. We shouldn't have that already, and if we do, that is a problem. You see it all these teachers give an extra curriculum about this and that. You hear about, the teachers who are biased for Trump, and they're kind of like pushing it on those kids already. We shouldn't even have that. There should be no debate. Whatever it is, the facts are facts. The statements 1+1 is just 2, and that we should have that as a standard for religious school and so on and so forth. But we're not just talking about what these kids are reading and doing this. We're talking about also meal preparations. You're gonna have some people who can't, eat meat because of this, and if it's actually going to be, never, you throw meat in a fryer, you can't serve that to a vegan, because it totally messed up their diet. So you're talking about some of these kids may need a certain type of education to help them because of their upbringing in religion. And that's
And
what I'm
public
saying. It's
schools
not,
should provide that. I think that by law we already do stuff like that. Like we have non-denominational prayer spaces in like airports and most like well-functioning schools. Those are like the society should be derived in such a way that everyone who goes through a public school can like observe their religion within the bounds of like not hurting other people as much as possible. They can choose to eat the vegan option at school. Like you don't need to have a whole separate school to make a vegan food. It's
so
really
you
not that hard. I
so you're
promise
gonna
you.
so you're gonna let the Christians or anybody who's religion say, I don't want my son taking science because we believe in God made man.
That's hurting someone else. That's the whole point that I'm trying to suggest here is that allowing religious people to choose to teach their children things that are not based in fact just because they believe it to be fact is hurting someone else.
How so?
Look,
How's it hurting you?
Well,
But
because
this,
it's creating. Go ahead.
I
if
was
we
just gonna go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry, I almost skipped.
No, that's all right. If we eliminate these institutions, right, outright, then we're just because like we know that these parents are sending them to these schools because they are strong, like they have strong held beliefs and they want these things to be taught to their kids. So if we eliminate these institutions, we're only putting kids in like potentially more dangerous situations where they like after school, just going to get sent to like a Bible camp or a Bible school anyway, right? They're gonna like they're gonna get extra time with these inside these churches and these institutions where they're not getting it in school. Like or at home, the parents are just gonna like every day after school, they're just gonna be sitting them down after their lessons and still be going into this stuff with them, right? So would you rather have that or where the government has a hand in that institution, right? Where they can say, all right, you can teach your kids this religion, but there's some standards we have to put in place here. There's some extremes you cannot cross, right? And like there's some things we will not allow. And if we try to eliminate those like these private schools outright, then that's just gonna like it's gonna like cause some like mass hysteria with these people. Not only that, they're gonna be like more inclined to like go hard line with these beliefs because they feel like their kids are just being just there's this anti-theist this ideas going around in this country, and they want to like beat it into the kids even more because they feel like the religion's being attacked, and so they're gonna do some desperate things. They're going to they're gonna give their kids off to some like religious, some church or some priest who's like completely insane and who's just like pushing all these ideas with no regulation at all, right? Because there you don't have to put any regulation on just people going to church in general. But when it comes to schools, there has to be some regulations in place. And I think it's more of a dangerous situation if we start forcing people to go outside of the situation and to like take the situation into their own hands more.
Okay, so
I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to say that this is the ideal policy for right now. I'm saying that the ideal society would be one where all children are given the right to choose their religion rather than having one chosen for them by their parents. I
So,
don't want
like-
children to be property of parents.
So like we can live in like the idealistic utopia where like we don't want evil, we don't want racism, we don't want all this bad. But right now when we talk about like how we are going to get there, I personally want to know a solution where like we don't get the government heavily involved. We don't, like Chris Cosmo said, run into the problems where like these parents are just going to find other ways to do this so-called indoctrination, like you want to say. Like you talked about the camps earlier. The one thing that's probably like that's more likely than happen is like, okay, cool, you went to school because the state says you have to, now we're going to send you to the camp for the summer. And guess what? There's no regulations in camps that, like, when it comes to like what exactly happens, they have to follow certain safety regulations, but like they can teach pretty much whatever they want. Like they can get away with a lot in a camp, more so than like a private school where like the government can't step in and say like, hey, this is the curriculum you have to teach. We just need to enforce it. So like, again, like without like going far off into the
you
future.
realize that's the status quo right now. There are literally gay conversion therapy camps that people send their kids to all the time. I think the argument that there is going to be like
before you bring up the gay conversion therapy camps, like that is an issue that we're facing right now, and we're already seeing a lot of pushback. A lot of states are making those illegal, like as we speak. We're not talking about strictly conversion camps or anything. We're talking about them looking at schools and saying, hey, we don't want my child filled with that brainwash and nonsense. So because the state says we have to send you to school, we're going to do that so we don't have any repercussions. But during the summer, like, yeah, your autonomy for the summer fun time, bye-bye. You're going to a Christian camp. Right.
So this is literally the status quo. So your argument is that if we like say regulated private schools that were religious out of existence, that there would be like an enormous uptick of this. Maybe, sure, that might be the case right now. I'm talking about like in an ideal society.
It's that we're not covering the ideal society, right? Like not in the ideal society, the lead up to your ideal utopian society.
The lead up is probably exactly what you guys are talking about. You should want to reduce the role of people to be able to teach their kids just random crap like creationism. You should try to impose these minimum standards. And what we'll find is that those people become less religious because they're being less indoctrinated. It's literally that simple. Like the more we like move along this path, the closer we get to being able to do this.
Tags.
But this is the thing too, though. I mean, say you make the public school a certain way, right? But then you're gonna have pushback from parents. I mean, we already see it. At least when I was in high school, and that was I don't even know. That's way too long ago. But the fact is, I don't want my kid learning about sex yet, not because of religious reasons. So they opt out of them. He does not have to attend. I don't want my kid doing this. I'm gonna opt out of it. Oh, the field trip to DC? Nope, opt out of it. So now you're already gonna have this kid who now the parent may not want this kid to be a part of this because the teacher's pushing this, or this isn't being pushed. They're going to opt out of school, and then what happens to that kid's education? The public school, like I said, should be a standard. But also, like I said, this is also is America. If I want my money to go towards my kid's education as a parent, I'm responsible for that kid. I mean, that's why we have laws like parent neglect, parent abuse, child abuse, stuff like that. It's up to the parent to be good parents. And any good parent would not just, you can't learn this because we're bigots. You can't learn this because we don't want you to, because we want to affect you and have you not have a good start in life. No, good parents will introduce their kid to that. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, I went to Awanas after school. I went to Christian camp. I'm not even religious. Because it's not so much that, you're looking at it from, a religious thing, like, you're going to have, synagogues, prayer, and this and that. It's all going to be some radicalized area because of their religion. No. And that's what I mean, is that if you want your kid to go somewhere, you as an American have that right. And if you don't agree with this school system in this district, then move. You have that right as an American to choose that for your kid, because you create that kid. You are sending that kid to what you think will be the most successful for that kid. I mean, and you talk about this whole indoctrination. I mean, we do see it. We see it all the time with parents pushing agendas on their kids. Like me personally, I would never have my kid go to any kind of protest or riot, but yet we still see it. Now, am I going to say that they're a bad parent? No, because they think that they are doing best for their kid by exposing them to those protests or riots or whatever. But that's not up to me. That is up to the law and the parents to make that decision, whether it's right or wrong, whether I agree or disagree. I shouldn't be able to retaliate onto their beliefs, because that's not up to me.
Okay, that'll have to be it. All right, so we will be voting for the winner. Voting for the winner that's coming up. Before we do that, though, I want to give 30 seconds to each of these people as to why they should get your vote and become Stream Queen. Start with Pyro. Pyro, why should you be Stream Queen?
So I should be Stream Queen because even though I've been on the bottom, I've managed to claw my way up through my arguments, right? And right now, in this last topic that's lasted like the last 2.5 topics, SocDoneLeft, and he said it multiple times, we're talking about a utopian society, right? What we want. Of course, this is what we want. The status quo right now is broken. I think the problem that I've had trying to vocalize is, I think what you're suggesting would make this problem worse than it already is.
Yeah, why you should be number one, why not more arguments?
No, that's why I think I should be number one, because I think the solutions he's proposing would fundamentally make the problem worse. That's my argument. Like, I'm not like going off on a tangent. Like, that's my argument, and I'll leave it at that.
Gotcha. All right, moving on. Chris Cosmo, why should you be the stream queen?
Listen, chat. I fought my way through this whole panel. I was giving good arguments this entire time and engaged with these topics, and like I continued to not only like give my own opinion but ask questions. And I think like I did an overall great job. Like I have like barely any following to go off of. You know what? Like I have like 2 people in chat who are like actual friends who've been like bigging me up. Yeah, but like other than that, the other support is just me giving my takes and having people agree with me. I have no following like that. When I stream, I got like two to 3 people watching me. I'm doing this off the strength of will, right? This is all willpower here, right? You should congratulate me for that. You should put me up on the top because I'm willing to do that. I'm going to battle with a giant here or giants. I don't know what Beyond the Tags' streams are like, but he's getting a lot of support. So right now, I'm fighting
All right,
someone
come
with
on.
a lot of clout.
We got it. Thank you. All right.
Vote for me, chat.
Okay.
Vote.
Moving. Thank you so much. Tags.
So I had 2 hours of prep, and then I had to somehow find the link to even join. But no, I mean I don't have the biggest following on Twitch, and apparently I've been shocked. I thought I was booted out after the whole critical race there. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just like, yep, I'm gone. But I wasn't. But see, I am all about the choice, the American freedom, the thing that we fight for in all these wars. You know, I take it from a different approach. I may not agree with you. I may think everyone here is wrong, but this is the thing. You're entitled to that opinion. So I'm not here to beg for anyone's vote. Chat, you guys just vote for who you guys want to. I'm not here to try to push my agenda on you because this is America. You guys are going to make your choice regardless what I say, and it's up to you.
Man. Tags, you're taking the wrong strategy here. Remember, us progressives, we don't like freedom, right? We're all about slavery to the government, right? So you should have jumped on that one, right? You like to obey, leftists, so you should obey me. Should have been your goal.
It's all about freedom, baby.
All right, but thank you, Tags. All right, finally, SocDoneLeft. Why should you be crowned?
I mean, I think Prime is spitting, leftists want to obey, so you should obey me and vote for SocDoneLeft. It's simple as that. I mean, I just think it's really interesting that we live in a world where progressives want to say that like children should be able to choose their sexuality and their gender identity, and parents shouldn't have any say in that. We should have a world where kids have that autonomy, but we're also okay with them being taught what is true about the world, what is true about morality, and like all of these knock-on beliefs. It's just insane to me. If you're willing to defend child autonomy in one area but not willing to defend it in another, I don't understand your beliefs about like autonomy in general. So with that, as your apparently authoritarian tyrant of the day, I urge you, in fact, I demand that you vote for me.
Okay, I love it. All right. Speaking from power, from strength. All right. So everyone, remember, once again, final round, 5 minutes. You're going to be voting. Chat, you will be deciding which one of these individuals will be the stream queen. Which one of these individuals becomes the winner, all right? So it's up to you to vote, and vote within the 5-minute time limit, not outside the 5-minute time limit, because if you vote after it, no one cares, especially not me. So no complaints. I don't give a shit. All right, try it one more time, even though there'll be cheers one way or the other. Here we go. Putting in the chat, vote right now. You have 5 minutes. 5 minutes left on the clock. Vote right this second. Do not wait. This is the final vote, right? And if you're a person who doesn't make it, that's because of you, not because of me. So vote right this second.
Also, can I add one thing? I totally screwed that up.
Okay.
The first time on the panel, how cool would it be if I won? Dang it, I totally missed that opportunity.
We've had a few people win on their first time.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, Samantha was like, hey, you want to be on? I'm like, yeah, let's go.
I'd say right now, like Chris, me, and Tags are like the only people here without a following that have like clawed our way up throughout like the entirety of this, right? Like, And for myself, I'm going to say, like, the audience, like, I can always say I don't have the audience vote right, but the panelists kept me here. And not even Prime interfering.
Yeah.
It was these guys. They kept me here because I convinced them to. They listened to me. So if you want to follow that tyrant, the pyro tyrant.
Sock, also, I wanted to address something. I, like, as a leftist, I do think kids should have some autonomy and like going, like, when it comes to these religions, right? I think still if parents want to teach their kids these things, they should be able to do that. But if the child doesn't want to be taught those things anymore, or they want to go against that, they should have every right to do so. And if like the child is being forced into the situation where they can't get out of that, then like the government should be able to step in. There should be laws in place for that. I just don't think that we should take away parents' right to be able to pass on their religion, which could very well be very much attached to their culture, down to the kids. Right? They're I know when it comes to like Christian denominations of religion, there's some dangerous things that happen throughout history with it, like with some of these sects. But I think there's a lot of other religions that are like really tied to some people's cultures that it'd be kind of harmful to be trying to strip away to be taught from these kids. I just think it just gets a little too dangerous. But I understand your sentiment.
And like parenting's a very complicated issue, so like I really don't like it that we're breaking it down on like this basic of a level, and then like applying the utopian mindset of like, well, I don't believe children belong to their parents. Neither do I. But when we're talking about, you know, children and like where they get this mindset from, like we can either rely on the broader society and the state, or we can kind of trust the parents with it. We see a lot of adverse effects from both, but like at this point in time, because I'm thinking about now in my future, like what I'm going to have to deal with when I'm 80, right? Like I don't want to trust the state nor our society with that because we're trending in the wrong direction. I'd rather trust like parents with that right now. If we, you know, get to a better state in society, maybe like exactly with like the police cops, maybe at some point in the future.
Okay, so link is in chat. Everyone, you have less than 2 minutes left to vote. Vote right this second. The link is in chat. Vote right now. If you vote afterwards, no one will care, least of all me. You have 2 minutes left on the clock. Vote right now. And I want to say, just for the record, I'm actually closer to SocDoneLeft on all this. If I had been part of this, I've been
love to hear it.
arguing vociferously with him. Yeah, like, fuck all that shit. Yeah, I think that... well, I guess my anti-religious stances are pretty well known within the community, but it would be great if people literally did have a chance to pick their own religion, right? That being said, I don't know how exactly we could do that. I don't know how we could actually set that up. But I'm definitely against any sort of indoctrination, yeah, especially with young kids. So, but how do you keep that from happening? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say something. Like, I think that right now, most public schools are structured in a way where they have like roughly similar models. But like to speak to what some other people have brought up, I totally like the idea that there should be different models of public schools. Like there should be, you know, more Montessori, sort of like anarchist-inspired style schools. There might be like schools that have more like imposition on children. I totally agree with that, and I think that there should be some degree of parental autonomy, but there should also be a large degree of child autonomy, especially when it comes to really important stuff like your worldview and how you think like everything in the world and politics and so on works. And I don't think it's necessary for religion to be taught like every day in your school for it to be passed down if it's something that's deeply important to you as a person or as a group, right? Like those things will be passed down regardless. There are, 75% of this country is religious right now, and I think that if you include spiritual, it's like 90%. And yet 90% of those people went to public school. You can clearly maintain religion through public school. The idea is simply trying to make sure that religious kids don't get shut off and isolated from like the rest of the non-religious world. That a parent can't be like, you're going to be in a religious school, you're going to go to religious camps, you're going to have religious friends, and they can all do all that right now.
Okay.
I mean, like with me, I mean, I have a kid on the way.
So
my only question to that.
Thank you. So, voting is done. Things over. If you didn't get a chance to vote, well, no one cares. Thank you, Vote Rise, for gifting a Hot 2-1 gift sub. That's really kind of you. Giving it turmeric. That's really kind. Thank you so much, Rise. Oh, gifted a tier 3 sub. Holy crap! Never mind. Holy shit. Thank you, Revolt Rise, gifting a tier 3 sub to Mary DeVille and forwarding a gift sub you got from our good friend Boji. Oh, that's really kind of you. Tier 3 sub. Oh man, thank you so much. Okay. All right, so time to decide. All right, look, there's not. Look, Pyro, you did your best. All right. You did your very best, and I appreciate you competing. You did great, and I want you to come back in the future, right? And you made it. You made it.
Oh,
to the
you
last
know I
round.
definitely will.
Okay, yeah.
Like, this ain't the last of Pyro. Like, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna fight every fucking time. I'm gonna fight against people with audiences and without, man. Like, nah, these points are dumb. But like, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It was really fun, Prime.
Thank you so much. All right. Next, we have from the bottom, we have Beyond the Tags, who tied with our good friend Pyro here. Beyond the Tags, thank you for stopping by and being, your first time here. Thank you for doing that, for being around. How you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate being on here, and I'm always here. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. And between the last two, all right, we have two competitors who fought their absolute hardest, but one was the clear winner. So Chris Cosmo, good work on being number 2, but SocDoneLeft is number 1. SocDoneLeft, you are the newest stream queen. How you feel, buddy?
So good. Incredible. Just absolutely astounded by this victory.
This is what a winner looks like, folks. Right here. This is what a winner looks like. Yes, the one cringing in the corner. That's what a winner looks like. So take a bow. Like, tell them, like, what an honor it is to be crowned.
Oh, it's incredible to be crowned, apparently the authoritarian tyrant in this debate. Telling y'all the vote worked. It's just proof that leftists are sheep and followers. I think this is another win for the right.
All right, I love it. I love it. Okay, let them know. All right, bow down to your queen, right? To your cruel queen. Evil wins again. Evil with a kind, boyish smile. Evil wins again. So here we go.
Incredible.
Thank you all for being a part of this.